as someone who doesn't play a lot of Izzet Delver, do you think the format is in a good place currently?
I do not believe that the current format is what one would call balanced um, in the
Yeah.
slightest. I think you can look at the relative win rate of Delver and the
Chest.
play rate of Delver and just conclude pretty obviously that there's something wrong there.
hmm
I think you can debate about how to fix that, but I think that it's pretty hard to argue that there isn't something wrong at this point. So,
hmm And we have
um,
an upfront chest request. Sometimes it happens. Oh god, none of these cards are worth anything. These cards aren't even cool. They're just kind of whatevs.
yeah.
All right. So yeah, kind of think, given how Watsi has handled bans recently, I would expect them to take action. I'm not pro action. I'm also not anti action. I'm just kind of whatevs. I'll just let them do whatever they want, and justify it however they want because they're perfectly capable of doing that.
Yeah,
But
they could put in any card and come up with some justification for it.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So I know you're fairly entrenched in Legacy, but for the people who might not be, what from this deck list stands out to you as usual or different or something you would have questions about, I guess is how I would put it.
from stock, Izzet Delver?
Yeah.
So I think the things that jump out to me, I think the main deck is like as stock as you can get in this format.
Right.
I think weird cards that people might be surprised at is a Sideboard Energy Flux. What is Price of Progress doing in 2022?
Yeah.
And maybe the Snapcaster Mage is a little bit weird.
Yeah, so I usually let I usually don't have enough time to always build a deck by myself, so I just look at where the trends are going for deck building. And at SCG Con Indianapolis, Clay Spickelmeyer, well-known Infect player, also well-known Legacy player, I think decided that playing two Price of Progress and Snapcaster and Mage in their sideboard was correct. They also had Sulfuric Vortex. I'm not as high on that card, so I didn't bother with that one. But the Snapcaster Plus price plan makes sense if you consider the fact that a lot of the control decks in the format are soft to that sort of plan. Namely, any sort of Uro-based control deck, I think, if you snap price them, they just auto lose. And a lot of those decks love to shade Force of Will versus you. So it's not like they even have a lot of counter magic for that sort of plan. And they're always on the back foot against you anyways. They're always taking damage here and there. So like it's not inconceivable that, Price of Progress deals them 10 and then Snap Price deals them another 10. And furthermore, there's a deck I'm very fond of, Lands. Price of Progress is one of the best weapons you could probably have in that matchup, depending on how exactly they play or the deck is built. Obviously, it's not going to win the game on the spot. You have to still deal some damage, but this is like 2 mana, deal 8, deal 10. And if they do just mulch field, could even deal 14 to them, which is an unreasonable rate.
Yeah, especially with the 8 cast variations of lands, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah, the 8 mulch ones, yeah. The thing about Energy Flux, I noticed that sometimes they can win through Meltdown if they have a Kappa Cannoneer, but if you Meltdown plus Energy Flux, it's pretty difficult for them to do so. I only wanted to play one because I think that card is not that great to draw multiples of. I also want Meltdown for various Aether Vial decks. I only usually side in one versus Death and Taxes, unless if I know for a fact they play Urza Saga. So that's kind of what's going on there.
That makes sense. I know that there was a trend in some of the paper decks to play some commander enchantment that I can't remember the name of.
It's called Maddening Hex. I read the card and I just concluded that even if it was on MTGO, I would still not play it. So that's my opinion of that card.
Yeah, it's
it's like a 1 red curse, and whenever they cast a non-creature spell, you roll 1d6 and they take that much damage.
Yeah.
I think it's like an Eidolon the Great Rebel that's one-sided. I think it's actually more of an anti-combo card than anything else, but it also costs 3 as your anti-combo card, so I'm just like, I don't know.
It's a lot of meta for an anti-combo card, I agree.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you played versus a control deck, I think what's going to happen is since it's not like Court of Cunning, they'll just like ending it and like not care. Like I don't.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm low on Vortex too. It's just like I think it depends on how exactly you want to play, but I don't feel like 3 mana permanents are the way to do it for some unless they're Hull Breacher. Now I actually cut Hull Breacher for this tournament because I just kind of thought there wouldn't be enough good matchups for the card, even though that
Yeah,
card
there's
is.
also no Court of Cunning in your list either. No
So
Monarch at all.
I noticed Court of Cunning. I beat Jeskai without it, and it's not. It was so awkward versus Bant, like or the green based control decks is a better point. They're
Mhm.
not really Bant, but the first time you cast Court and they just respond with Endurance, you're like, "Fuck, I'm dead." Like it's just so hard to take it back from them because they can just literally remove all of your creatures pretty easily if they want to, or like just like sneak in an Ice Fang, or just. I think if both of you are drawing 2 cards per turn, that actually favors them because like they can take advantage of like the extra lands or whatever. Like it's really just not something that I'm fond of trying to play more. I think if it was literally just only Jeskai control, I would play Court of Cunning and it would probably be okay.
Yeah, and I think that you have like this really late grind plan of Mystic Sanctuary
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
EI anyway, so you don't really need the Monarch
No,
at this point to grind control decks, which is kind of hilarious.
yeah, it's kind of funny. I think the Monarch is inherently a broken mechanic, but you can tell just like Death and Taxes cut their Palace Jailer, all of the Delver decks cut their Court of Cunnings. Like, sorry, I wouldn't say all of them. I would say like about half of them have cut their Court of Cunning. But I just think the card just introduces so much variance into a game, even in a matchup where you're like hypothetically supposed to like be able to, you know, protect it and win because they don't have enough creatures. And in reality, I found that's not the case anymore. So I don't want to do it. I don't want to rely on that as a plan when I feel like I don't need it.
Mhm.
Um. So yeah, I think that covers everything. I guess the question is what your flex slot should be and the main deck. I think basically no one debates Brainstorm, Delver, Ponder, DRC, Lightning Bolt, Daze, Iteration, Forcible, Murktide Regent. And the debates are like the 2 Baubles, Chain Lightning, Pyroblast, Brazen Bar, Mystic Sanctuary. But I think by this point, if you've seen enough of how like this Delver deck plays out, Sanctuary is really, really, really integral to the plan of the deck. Like when you need to play a really long game, and so the question is like how. I mean, like I think just Sanctuary just makes sense. Like it's a 19th land, it prevents you from screwing. Obviously, if you draw in your opening hand, it's like horrible because like it's like Tolera West or whatever. It's just
Yeah, but you
that's not a good card. But you know, um,
can always brainstorm it away, and I think that like it's pretty clear at this point that the late game engine of it is pretty powerful.
yeah. If
And
you
even
ever,
among those flex slots you
yeah,
mentioned, there's just almost no variation. Like maybe you'll see an Unholy Heat over the Pyroblast for some metagames, but even then it's pretty locked in because you want the Chain Lightning as sorcery for Dragon's Rage Channeler,
yeah.
the Baubles for DRC as well.
I know some of the Zoomers tried playing 4 Bauble. I think that's just way too many, and there's some matchups where Bauble's not good. Like,
Mm.
I don't know if you've ever drawn Mishra's Bubble versus Thalia. That is a horrible experience. It's just like, in fact, usually when I play against Death and Taxes, I don't leave that card in my deck because I just think it's too bad. Just because, like, I think it's, like, bad versus that, and it just, like, makes it harder to know if your game plan's going to work correctly. And yet, there are
Yeah.
diminishing returns on Baubles. I mean, that doesn't stop any of the modern decks from playing 4 because obviously you should play 4 in that format. Um, I I like having Brazen Bar as just like an out to Chalice, out to like basically just an out to anything. I guess is the best way of putting it.
Yeah, random nonsense.
We got Hogpog in the chat. Someone who has. They said I was talking to someone earlier. They said Hogpog was trying to learn Delver. So welcome to this format. It's this is a different format, I would say. Like, you don't get these play patterns. You don't even really get these play patterns in Vintage actually, because um, the main distinction between Vintage and Legacy, I think, is the restriction of Brainstorm.
Yeah.
is actually the games play out very differently. I would actually say legacy decks are way more consistent than vintage decks on average. It's just the power level delta between the best cards and worst cards in vintage decks is much higher than legacy deck.
Yeah, I think that that's exactly true.
Thoughts on second bar versus chain lightning? I like having a chain for delirium for Dragon Rage Channeler, and also just like having an extra removal spell for like Mother of Runes on turn one can be important, or like Allosaur Shepherd. Like I'm not in. I'm personally not in the market for another 2 minute spell. I think it should cost one. Some people play Preordain. Some people play more Baubles. Um, I actually almost pulled the trigger and played a second Power Blast for this tournament because I knew that there would be just so much Blue Red Delver in this tournament. And in fact,
Yeah.
if you actually look at the results, there is a metric ton of Blue Red Delver. The qualifier last Thursday, there was a ton of Blue Red Delver. I think if Watsi wants to make a ban on this, and maybe they want to, I'm not the fan of that. They certainly have all the ammunition they need by this point. I think is how I would put it.
Yeah, looking at the results from Joe Dyer's survey, it's 29% of the showcase, which
Yeah.
is kind of absurd given the next most played deck, I think, is like
Ban energy
looks
flux.
like 8 cast at 8%, so it's more than 3 times
Right.
the next deck. Just absurd dominance,
Yeah.
especially in this format. And it just continues a trend of 10 years of Delver being the best deck at some level.
Yeah, Hogpog asks, is there anything that's super favored against Delver? See, that's a very interesting question because a lot of people would claim that they have a good Delver matchup, and I think they don't. And I think you can build a deck to be good versus that, and then you lose to every other deck in the format. Like, I think
Yeah,
that's
I think
the reality of what happens.
you also have to be in a place that Delver isn't paying attention to you, because if Delver wants to beat you, it will. That's kind of the sticking point at this point, is that if Delver wants to beat you, it can. And if you're small enough and you have a good enough juke, like for example, Brian Cook and I have excellent results versus Delver, but that's because there's no null rods. Delver doesn't really care about beating TES because there's not enough players to play anything that matters.
Yeah,
and so we can just juke and win.
Yeah, so Killmaster P says, I'm convinced Lands is good against Delver. He did go 6-0 in the Showcase Qualifier as Mulch Lands versus Delver, so I think that is one way you can win. I mean, like, he said he was just hoping to not get priced out of games, and I think that's reasonable. And, like, the thing is, Lands versus Delver, Delver's going to start down most games once in that matchup if they don't play carefully, or if they don't have, like, an exceptionally good draw, I think, is the actual problem. So then, if you start down game one in that matchup, you have to like get to 70% post board to like even be even. I think that's kind of difficult even with this setup, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
Also think like generally it depends on the exact reanimator list, but like if you play Black Red Reanimator versus this list, I think you're probably slightly ahead in game one, and then like post board you probably just like kind of get, beaten, like 65% of the time or whatever the exact number is.
Yeah, I mean that's how Reanimator goes, right? Is you take an incredibly favored game one against most things in the format, I'd say, and then you just like kind of sack all your sideboard games and hope that you can just coin flip one of those two.
Yep.
In terms of Reed Duke's take on the archetype as a comment from the chat, I don't think there's a reason to be playing green cards.
I have a lot of thoughts on that. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Reed, but I kind of think just putting green into your deck means you have to like do a lot of things to your mana base and give up the Mystic Sanctuary engine. So it actually costs you some late game power as well to add green. Whereas like what adding green does is give you more like robust threats. But I'm not even sure that's necessary. Like the deck isn't really in need of more threats. What the deck is in need of is just like making sure that it doesn't flood out on irrelevant creatures in a long game, or like has the exact right mix of creatures and disruption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it turns out the blue and the red cards are the cards that really do that, and it's not the green ones.
Yeah, I would say that Reed's deck is just blue-red Murktide splashing Tarmogoyf, but even in Modern, where people do that as well, I think it's a mistake to do that in Modern as well. So like, I don't really see the reason to do that here personally. I mean, I know Reed had a better result than I did, but I'm not sure if that's player difference or list difference. I suspect it's just player difference. Not
Yeah, and you could make the argument that Tarmogoyf can't get killed by bolt, but like all the Delver threats fly. Like you just go over the Goyf and it doesn't matter.
I mean, there are games that this deck will lose to Tarmogoyf. Let's not be
Yeah.
unrealistic because it is a 2-mana threat. It doesn't require you delve away your entire graveyard to cast it. So there are some advantages to it. Don't get me wrong. I just think, generally speaking, it's probably not right to do what Reed did, and I'm sure he did take some people off guard, and Ancient Grudge is pretty good. I don't think Ancient Grudge is as good as Meltdown for save cast, but certainly is a lot more consistent and does have some strengths. Like the thing is, if you need to kill two really expensive artifacts, Ancient Grudge is actually a lot better than Meltdown.
Yeah. The problem is that the really expensive artifacts outside of Thought Monitor in that matchup
Have Ward
are
4.
Cannon here, and it's
Yeah.
Ward 4. And are you going to pay 5 or 6 mana for your card? Probably not.
What about Carpet in the board for mirrors? That I don't think that's how mirrors play out. Because I think the thing is about most of the Delver decks, they're designed to operate in such little mana anyways. Getting more mana out of your carpet in a mirror doesn't do much. Whereas getting more mana out of your carpet in a storm deck or an Uro deck is a huge difference. I think just I would not want to put Soul Ring into this deck, and that's why no one plays Soul Ring. Carpet is basically Soul Ring, right?
Yeah. Having resolved lots of carpets versus Delver, basically Soul Ring, makes colored mana.
Yeah. Anyways, I think, is there anything I didn't really cover? Oh, a lot of people play two at end the festivities. I kind of think just having one rough tumble is nice. Especially versus elves when they have Nettle Sentinels or Reclaimers. Sometimes think the second damage actually matters a non-zero amount. If I expected the field to be only Death and Taxes, I would probably play two end the festivities. I think rough tumble is much worse for some because of Thalia.
Yeah. I don't think you would run Veil in the mirror if you were playing green. That's just not worth it. It's not what you want to be doing.
The only thing I would want Veil of Summer for is I don't know, probably I don't know. I kind of feel like Veil is a bad Flusterstorm. Actually, is how I would actually put it. But
yeah,
that's not even really valid because Veil is a Mist of Magic card. I just think it's not good in Delver generally because there's so many spells you actually need to counter instead of leaving up Veil versus Storm currently nowadays is actually really good, but it's kind of just not good anywhere else is what I would say. It's not like modern. There's not actually a lot of Thoughtseize decks besides the Storm decks. Is how I would actually put it.
Yeah, and even then, only half the Storm decks are Thoughtseize decks, and
yeah,
it just doesn't do enough proactive things. And veiling to protect one of your spells is neat from a micro advantage level of just that's obviously a favorable interaction, but none of your threats individually matter that much most of the time.
Someone had the good point that you can't veil a Days Undoing, which
That's
is
also
a
true.
very valid point. Yeah, the Days Undoing Narset thing, while it is legal and modern, is a lot more fragile, is how I'd put it. And you also get a redundancy on it with Hole Breacher in this format. The real issue with those decks, I think, is they don't actually beat this deck because I don't know if you've tried to resolve a million 3-drops versus this deck. It doesn't work well. You get dazed, then you get wasted, then you get maybe one of your spells gets forced. Then when they have 4 Pyroblasts, it's abject misery to try to do that versus this deck.
Yeah.
One. I'm gonna answer one last decklist question. Was Sanctuary played before Iteration existed? I sideboarded it in Grixis Delver along Painful Truths for the control decks. I just think with Iteration, obviously, there's not a real reason to play something like Painful Truths.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. So I think that explains everything, and I do have the replays, but I hate using the MTGO replay feature because it's super buggy and it doesn't work well. So you just record them on OBS instead because That's how it is. All right. Oh wait, I should switch to VLC because you can speed up the replays in VLC.
VLC, let's go.
Do I want to download a new? Not right now. All right. Where is the? There's a way to speed up. Never remember where it is. Oh, it's here. Faster. Still faster. Allow access. Oh, what did we add? I just mulliganed hand with no blue source because like
Into a second hand with no blue source.
Yeah, I don't know what my opponent's playing. Actually, They said like hi in the chat, and I actually did say hi back to them. I guess people can't see it right now. Why is it not full screened? Oh, yeah, okay. So the last time I played this person in an IRL event, they were elves, but that's been like 7 years or whatever, like so. It literally could be anything. I mean, as far as 5-card hands go, this is like actually a pretty good one. I feel like. I mean, like you can never mulligan this hand,
Yeah, I mean, after an unkeepable 7 and an unkeepable 6, you kind of run out of options, right? So I think you're not unhappy to see basic island.
Yeah, I think like my hand's pretty good versus most basic island deck. Basic island makes me think combo or a control deck, though. I mean, obviously it could still be the mirror, but the thing is, like most mirrors, usually people try to remove your threat on one or like cast a cantrip on one. So I have like a small feeling of Jeskai or like maybe A&T or Doomsday.
Yeah, as soon as they play the Tarn, it's not either Storm deck, right? Because that's impossible for those decks to play, generally. So this means that if it's combo, it's going to be Doomsday.
Do they not play Tarn?
No. Ant plays exclusively Deltas and Misties.
Interesting.
Because you need to fetch Bayou and Tropical Island.
I thought the Demonic Tears list was just Grixis.
Yeah, that's also possible.
And that so I feel like if someone's copying an A&T list, they would copy Demonic Tutors list, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
my opponent also tanked forever, so that gave me some huge Doomsday vibes. Although I feel like if they had Doomsday, they can't shove there because I would just they already played around days,
Yeah, so I guess Tutors is playing 2 Scalding Turns, but
yeah. Well, I mean, how I would lose to Day Breacher this game is because I went to 5 cards versus Day Breacher. So if they just remove my first 2 threats, I probably lose. So this gives me real Doomsday vibes, but obviously, you never know for sure. But does Doomsday play Preordain?
They usually play like a non-zero amount, right?
I thought
it's not many.
I thought they didn't have space after Personal Tutor, right?
Yeah, people do all sorts of wacky shit with Doomsday, and it's hard to keep track of those things.
So I just stays up front on the off chance that they are actually Storm. Because if they're Storm, then they have to crack pedal. They have less flexibility with their colors. I feel like if they're Storm, I'm going to die by so much with 6 cards in their hand anyways that it's kind of just better to see if because you know how it is. Sometimes there are situations where they want to go Writ Duress, Writ Pass in Flames or something like that,
Yeah, and cutting opponent off of red mana here, if they are Storm, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because if I force them through the ad nauseum line, there's a chance that they die from 11. I mean, it's not a good chance, but
yeah. I mean, from 11, when you're playing Ant, is that's almost shut off for ad nauseum.
Is it? I mean, they have a land drop, right?
It's still not I don't even know if it's likely from 11.
Yeah, the problem is to figure that out, or even to write the Monte Carlo, you would have to program so much logic into it, because you would have to basically see if your ad nauseum's lethal and then decide whether to stop or not, which basically involves teaching the computer to play Ant, right?
Yeah, there's just so many 2s and Cabal rituals in the deck that
Alright, and my opponent speeds up, so I just assume I'm dead. They float And the jig is up. I am
Yeah,
dead by
so
a
this is
lot.
yeah.
Except their last card, like they were hellbent, and then so I'm just hopeful. I'm like, okay, and then it turned out their
Yeah.
last card was Infernal Tutor, so this is lethal by a lot. It's like 19 drills if they really want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a sequencing thing there where you could like tutor for a third Cabal ritual, but like that's
Well,
probably just
I mean,
unnecessary.
they knew I was dead, so they didn't bother. They just
Yeah.
wanted to save time. I personally don't think lava spiking your opponent a lot of times works very much. I know some other people like to do it. I would rather just try to power blast their cantrips and make sure they don't have enough cards.
Yeah. I think that you're definitely in against current iterations of Ant, I think you're definitely supposed to have sweepers in. I think that they're actually more likely to empty you in the matchup than TES is.
I could see that. I don't like doing that, but also just think like, hmm, maybe I should have.
Yeah.
I
I
thought they
think
were
having the one in
well.
there
So
is
so
pretty free.
my issue is I thought they were heavier on Ave than empty.
It's like 50-50 about I mean people are playing both if we're being honest.
Okay.
But in the tutors list he doesn't play Ave, right? And you've seen Scalding Turns, that means that it
Sure.
is the tutors list.
Okay, so I actually should unpack. I think a lot of people will just mulligan this hand because they're like, oh, you don't have a force. But I think that's actually a mistake to mulligan a hand like this versus ANT. And because I think they require a little bit more time to set up, and I have a bunch of cantrips, uh, I basically think people would mulligan this hand and then they would just get shredded by discard instead.
Yeah, and I think that Wasteland is also really good versus any flavor of Storm.
Yeah, and
So that's like an incentive to keep.
yeah, and also I think the cantrips are really good versus discard. So like I'm just never mulling this hand.
Yeah, and if you die on turn one, you die on turn one. Like it happens.
Yeah, I mean, and also I could just like hypothetically ponder into a force or a daze. That's like 3 looks at it. Like
Yeah.
if I see a force or daze, I'm like almost locked into taking it because it's just so much safer is how I would put it.
Yeah. I really like the Pyroblast here. I think that Pyroblasting Ant's turn two Brainstorm is like probably debilitating.
I actually like pyroblasting almost all storm decks brainstorms in this spot if they let me.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's what my hand does. I'm just going to like try to do that, like maybe waste them. It's kind of debatable if I should power blast this one, but I decide to because I want to tap out for iteration next turn anyways.
Yeah, I think that that makes sense when you've already got all of your mana like lined up along the way.
Oh, the change of plans, getting the clock on is a lot better than trying to iterate into like the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
like there's a chance I die next turn, but I kind of think it's a mistake to not deploy the threat here.
That's a good card.
Yeah, I actually almost milled it, but I'm just like, there's a chance that they just have exactly a piff kill with like one tutor, but then I found a better card, so
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, and that's like probably the best card in the matchup if we're being honest.
Yeah,
It just like stops them from double piffing you and all the good things that that card is designed to do.
right. I gave donning it like maybe a few seconds of thought and decide not to, obviously, but you might as well think about it.
Yeah.
So what's with all these basics? All right, there goes my
And
pawn.
generally plays two, right? At this point in the time, and I think Tutors plays three. Two islands.
Yeah. Anyways, I shuffled away the surgical because I think I could actually do better. It so it's weird if I actually iteration into well, I was about to say if I iteration into a fetch plus cantrip, I can just stack my deck with fawn. So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
left the sanctuary there with the intention of just sanctuarying back the fawn. But this is kind of interesting. Like you can do the same thing with the delta instead and hide it a little bit better, I feel like.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, if I survive this turn cycle, I'll have double force, like just guaranteed. Because like I think
Yeah.
it's maniacal not to put fawn on top of your deck with sanctuary here.
Yeah. It's unfair. Most four color ant lists play one island. Uh, if you're playing straight Grixis, then 2 is
Okay,
probably more reasonable.
that makes sense. So once you cut the green, you're allowed to. All right.
Yeah.
And my opponent, it looked like they sandbagged a second Thoughtseize for this turn. So that's either, I mean, I don't know if they sandbagged it or if they just drew it, but it obviously looks to me like I'm going to just get killed when I just needed one more turn.
And now we see, do we see Ant demonstrate that it's not a good ad nauseum deck, or?
We do see that, but the question is it enough? I think I'm dead with the double lead, so.
I don't know if the storm count is high enough, if I'm being honest. I mean, I guess they can like empty you, but I think you can race that if you flip the Dragon's Rage channelers.
So they played Thoughtseize, Petal, Cabal Writ. I think that's enough, though. I think that's enough by a lot, unfortunately. So, you know.
Yeah, because now they get to cast the Duresses. I think that's what does it.
Yeah.
Oh, and I guess they had an Infernal Tutor in hand.
Yeah, they flipped a Tutor. So they knew my hand anyway, so
Sure.
they can just Tutor Chain if it wasn't lethal anyways, so.
I mean, they didn't even need a Tutor Chain, right? Like, you're just dead before that Tutor.
Anyways, a little bit of a frustrating match, but a lot of people, I don't know how you feel about this. Do you think A&T is actually favored versus Blue-Red?
I think it might be like slightly better than a coin flip for Ant. I think it also changes if you're playing 4-color versus just straight Grixis. I think that Grixis is probably slightly better because you do have that third basic.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I think that the incentives to be 4-color are just generally higher overall. Because I think that Abrupt Decay is just a really good magic card, as is Carpet of Flowers. Though, I don't know. I think that there's like almost no reason to be playing Ant in current year, but that's a whole different kettle of fish.
That's true. I mean, obviously the round 1 opponent thought there was a reason to play Ant. I think it's just like a Demonic Tutors thing, though, right? Like, I don't know how good the deck is.
Yeah. The thing is that like once you have one player who starts winning, then people start copying that, right? So that's there's just gonna be a lot of reinforcement for Grixis. And I think that also I don't know. If you want to beat Delver and you want to play Tendrils of Agony, there's no reason not to play TES. I think that's just very true.
I mean, from you and Brian's data set, that does make sense to me. Obviously, I didn't actually even ask either of you beforehand because I was like, I'm going to play lands or blue-red, and I didn't really think much about it besides that. Anyways, this hand's actually on the lower end of what I'm willing to keep, but I think it's like pretty hard to mulligan a hand that has Delver, waste, functional mana, right? Especially when I draw the days right there, like now I feel like the game's virtually over because I, blind flipped and I'm going to probably daze my opponent's first removal spell and probably waste them.
It's always a good feeling like when they waste you after you've played a Delver, right?
It depends. I have definitely wasted people when they've gone to like 6 cards, went like Volk Delver, because I'm just like, well, if I waste them, they don't have a land, and I kill their thing with this bold hand, they can never win. So it really depends on your hand.
Yeah. So I imagine this is the first of many Delver mirrors you played this weekend.
Yeah, it looks like it to me. We won't spoil it, but I certainly did play a lot of mirrors, and I actually the mirror is the mirror and 8 casts and lands were the only decks I mapped out sideboarding for because I didn't bother with anything else.
I think that makes sense. I think that those are
the
2 hard matchups and the most common matchup. And then everything else you can kind of just beat by being Delver most of the time.
Pretty much. That's how I felt about it. I'm thinking about forcing this, and I actually decide to because, they're basically dying on board, especially because I get to waste their blue-red source, right?
Yeah, and if you get to flip your Delvers, then they're just dead so many ways, right?
Yeah, it as it is unfair says if they don't have basic mountain in their deck, which basically no one plays, they're basically dead. Well, and also lightning bolt's literally lethal, so
yeah, they just concede on the spot.
I had a turn 4 kill after they wasted me once. which is kind of funny to think about. It was pretty straightforward boarding. I side out the forces for three power blasts and a Snapcaster. I don't think any of the other cards are real. Some people side an end in the festivities. I would specifically only side an end if I thought my opponent would deploy multiple X1s into it, or if they played Young Pyromancer. I don't really like it otherwise, so I didn't bother with it in this situation.
That makes sense.
I mean, there was a time where most of the Delver decks did have, like, Young Pyromancer, so I usually sided in Blazing Volley. Anyways, I'm pondering here just to stabilize my mana, because, like, it would be higher upside to play the DRC first, and just, like, kill all of their stuff after that, but if you get wasted, like, which they had, you auto-lose if you don't have another land right away.
Yep, that makes sense. It's all about just like minimizing your bad cases, which I think that's what Legacy is about, is just like minimize the lowest variance and make your opponent run into their fail cases more than you do.
And yeah, honestly, I'm just trying to block their stuff with my stuff would not end well generally. I think you're supposed to just spend your removal. I think it's just a lot safer.
Mm-hmm.
So we're basically reset. I have 6 cards, they have 4. They revealed Lightning Bolt, but I kind of feel like I'm actually okay as long as I don't take too much damage from that creature,
Yeah, and we have Bolt back by Days here again.
Yeah, if they have Days of their own floating, it doesn't work as well, but I'm always bolting here.
Yeah.
Them having Spell Pierce is super weird. And I'm like considering not even dazing it, because I don't think it actually does anything. Like,
yeah, Spell Pierce is a choice in 2022. I'll say.
I mean, I wouldn't put it in my deck, but I also wouldn't have it in my deck post-board in a mirror, is the other thing.
Yeah, I think it just doesn't do what you want it to do most of the time.
Yep.
I think that an interesting choice you made there is putting the land on top, which I think in older eras of Delver, you'd just be like, my third land? I don't want this ever. But because you can build towards the iteration late game, just the extra lands are super valuable.
It turns out hitting land number 4 nowadays isn't Flood. It just means you get to cast a good card again, which is, kind of degenerate.
Maybe we just need a Mystic Sanctuary ban in Legacy, just like Modern did. Maybe that's the solution.
No, that's definitely not the solution. I don't think.
Yeah.
Sanctuary is almost certainly not the problem, because all of the decks that play Sanctuary, like, you can actually waste them off Sanctuary a fair amount. That's actually one of the reasons I think before people started putting Sanctuary in the blue-red decks, people would side out wastes in the mirrors because it's like kind of oddly not great. But I think once everyone has Sanctuary, then it's just very different,
Yeah, I think funnily enough, the 3 cards in your hand are what most people would point to as things to remove from this deck.
Yeah, I'm kind of whatever about it. Like, I don't really care. Just have a coherent philosophy on your bans.
Yeah, and Daisy in this brainstorm feels great.
Yeah, I think they just have no land. Like, based on the play patterns, they have no lands. They don't have a blast. If they had a blast, they would just use that instead. And I think it's just correct to just, like, make another Murktide, because how did they ever beat double Murktide here?
Yeah, especially because you get in for 9 here, just like the extra point of damage.
Yep.
It's kind of insane. Yeah, and then they have another brainstorm here, which is just like terrifying. Or not terrifying, but like terrifying from their seat that they have to be brainstorming in the face of lethal.
I guess they didn't even find a Power Blast, because if they found a Power Blast, they probably don't concede.
Yeah.
Someone just asked, let's see, there's a few questions in chat. Do I think the new set will deliver on Legacy playables? I would say generally the 3-color sets don't very often, is how I would put it. Is expressive close to a problem? Alright. I'll answer this real quickly. I think if you actually wanted to nerf Delver, like, significantly, that is the card you should axe. Like, I don't think axing a creature... Like, obviously Murktide's, like, kind of a broken creature, but I think if you structurally wanted to weaken Delver a lot, I think axing iteration would do a lot more to weaken it.
Yeah, I agree. That's the card that I am surprised they didn't ban with Ragaban.
Alright. That was a mirror. Oh wait, I need to open in the other client. DLC. Okay, round 3. I think it always just like resets this. Yeah, always
Yeah.
resets that.
There might be a way to do it if you like open it directly from VLC, but
all right. I will say that I went ahead for most of my opponents and I did look them up on Goldfish. This person only had modern results, so it didn't help very much. But then you revealed Yorion, I'm just like, okay, that's almost certainly death and taxes by this point.
yeah, you just take the coin flip of it if it's gonna be like something silly like a Lurin or
Well,
whatever.
I
You're
mean,
like,
this hand's really good for Soharan because it kills
yeah.
fast. So like this hand's good versus both Alarm and Death and Taxes. So I think the way you actually beat Death and Taxes is just deploy a bunch of creatures, hope they don't have enough removal, and just kill them.
Yeah. And then opponent's playing a very ugly basic land. And I don't know, probably just die to a couple Delvers here.
Yeah. Yeah, I usually just deploy all my creatures in the spot, like, and then you can use the next turn to set up.
Yeah.
Turn 1 Ponder is the best way to lose a DNT. That's a funny way of putting it. Like, I mean, like, I think your better starts do start with turn 1 creature versus them because like I don't really like. It's a metric I usually use is how bad is it if we both go to turn 15 plus. And I think it's not great for Delver even with the Sanctuary thing if you go to turn 15 plus versus them.
Yeah. And the Stoneforge just does Stoneforge things here.
Yeah, the question they got Batterskull. I'm just like, can I beat that? I think I may be able to just race it. And I actually do like brainstorm here. A lot of people will just be like, you shouldn't brainstorm, but here my plan for this game is not to let it go on so long. Because if it goes on long, I think I'm just not gonna win through that Batterskull,
Yeah, and you have like 6 cards that can be at the Batterskull here between
Yeah.
4 bolts, the Chain Lightning, and the Brazen Borrower. So I think that this is reasonable.
Yeah. And also with the Murktide, there's a chance that I can just like make them have to remove myself, then I top deck a bolt a turn later. Right?
Yeah. And like also you have the Ponder to dig for Bolt here as well. So we get to
Right.
see a lot of cards this turn looking for whatever we need.
Right.
I might have cast the Bauble and like looked at their top card or whatever
I
just for
yeah.
like much more information, but I don't think it really matters.
I think I was supposed to, but in the situation I'm in, those cards are bad. I'm pretty sure.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do end up doing it, but I should have done it first. And seeing another plow is kind of awkward. So now like I'm kind of like up shit's creek actually, I think. That's a little
And there's
bit
the Chain
late.
Lightning we wanted. Yeah. Uh them missing a land here actually kind of feels huge because they can't swords plus
Yeah.
put in Batterskull, right?
Right. So I just attack first and see what they do. And I think I do chain the Stoneforge because then if they decide that they want to put the Batterskull in, then I can just play the Murktide and the Delver, and then they have to spend their entire turn casting Plow.
Yep.
Oh, I can also just Sanctuary back the Chain Lightning. But actually, if I was going to do that, I should have played the Murktide first because it would grow 1 from the chain, and this is what I'm realizing. The Sanctuary has, like, Murktide has the really dumb clause of if it just leaves your graveyard, it grows.
Yeah, I've definitely Echo Vion's a Murktide into being lethal when I didn't expect it to be, which is a very silly interaction.
So yeah, not playing the Murktide first is a mistake for sure. And I think this might be a situation where like, well, the Murktide's going to get plowed, but I think me gaining 1 life might actually matter.
Yeah, that's very
So
possible.
like, I don't know. It's my Delver's going to flip. The thing is, like, even if they plow this, I actually figured this out later. They would go to 11, chain flips the Delver, so they're just still taking 12, right?
Yeah, they're just dead no matter what they do, basically. Unless they had like land double plow, and I think yeah, dead without 2 falls or a solitude is pretty much exactly where they're at.
Yeah. So basically, I spewed a little bit, but it wasn't enough. I took a screenshot because this is not usually how these games go. Because like if Batterskull does get into play and the Murktide gets removed, you usually lose.
Yep. Yeah, Cunning the Pyroblast makes sense despite them having a 5-mana face-up blue card every game. But
Yeah, I've actually Pyroblasted the Yorion in game 1 a non-zero amount, which is really funny. So I know some people like siding out Force of Will. I think that is maniacal. I think really one of the so few things matter in a matchup. I think what really matters in a matchup is them plowing your Murktide or them like getting a bunch of like Aether Vials and shit. I don't know, like
this is definitely an interesting hand that just like kills everything. But I
yeah,
guess we're experimenting with the best way to lose is to cast Ponder on turn 1. But
yeah, I'm not gonna mulligan that hand because it does have like I think it's a mistake, but I do shuffle that Ponder because I think finding the land is more important.
yeah, I think I also would have shuffled the Ponder.
So it's kind of interesting if you're supposed to do days here or not. The reason not to days is making land drops actually matters. So I actually chose not to, and I think my plan is to just bolt in, just let them get a card.
Yeah, it feels like from the way they played last game, they're likely to get something that they can't play without Stoneforging it into play. They find Lion Sash?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know if that's even good versus me, but I do have this meltdown, so I'm kind of just hoping they play like Vile Meltdown and I find a land.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly a card that is legal to find with Stoneforge Mystic.
Do I like Court of Cunning versus Texas? I don't like Court of Cunning versus anyone, so it's not even my sideboard. Thunderwall. Okay, let's talk about the. I'll pause for a sec. If you want to play Court of Cunning, here are the matchups I would side it in: lands and Jeskai control decks. I would not side it in versus like the green based control decks because if you get endurance with Court out, it's just game losing. And yeah, I think they're more likely to get Lion Sash if they already have Batterskull or Culture complete in hand. I do
That
agree
makes
with
sense.
that. See, now I have to daze because like I don't even know if I'm gonna have another land or not.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is definitely a game of just waiting until we hit our second blue for Murktide, and that kind of feels like what's going to end the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, but if they ever find a port or a waste, it's gonna be super hard to win otherwise.
Speaking of,
Yeah, it's not good. I actually should have considered wasting the Crocus on my turn to prevent this exact thing.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's still correct to do it and just hope they don't have like a bunch of lands, but
yeah, it's hard to tell, and like we have like several answers to lots of things with these forces, but like that runs out of steam very quickly.
yeah, I mean, really, the problem was that I pondered, didn't find another land, but like, and I didn't have another
Yeah,
cantrip for a bit, so this is what the game's gonna look like. And then like, if they just have any amount of removal, I probably lose because like if they have two removal spells, I definitely lose this game. I think.
mm.
Also, like even barring that, what actually has to happen is I have to get two blue horses into play without getting waste ported down. Essentially.
Yeah, especially need like the full on 3 blue sources.
Yeah, so like the island is kind of a bad draw. Like it's a fine draw, but it's worse than drawing like fetch lands essentially.
Yeah, so them passing here like that's 6 mana they have.
I mean,
Interesting.
I think they're just flooded personally.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're correct in the read from before that they have an expensive equipment in hand, they probably have the Cauldron, not the Batterskull.
Yeah, that's possible for sure.
Unless they've evaluated that porting you for forever is better than playing Batterskull.
All right, so I finally find some lands. I think this Meltdown can very clearly go this game. I do not see it like doing anything.
Yeah.
Oh, what did I put underneath that?
You put the days underneath it.
Oh yeah, I think Days is worthless this game. Like Meltdown's worthless, but I think Days is more worthless.
Yeah.
Here I was trying to figure out if like there's some way to like get them to not port.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't come up with anything, so I just like went ahead and fetched because I didn't want to draw the cards.
Yeah, we definitely had option to play Murktide this turn.
I thought about it, and I think the issue with doing that is if they just, untap and kill it, then I'm like not really going anywhere. Whereas if I like use iteration to find protection, maybe that works out better,
Yeah.
Because I think it is basically a lock to be killed right here.
Yeah, like they haven't been playing anything, so their hand is probably full of reactive shaped things.
And that is a bad card for me to see, because I think that's like the beginning of the end.
Yeah, because this is like recruiter for recruiter, recruiter for flicker wisp, something like that.
Yeah. Although the way they played, I doubt they would even play the flicker wisp this turn. Okay, but they drew a land, so I think they were mindful of days this entire game.
Yeah.
But they could just afford to be like, I wasn't really killing them, so they can just play as slow as they want.
Mm-hmm. This would be a neat end of the festivities off the top.
Rough Tumble is worse than end festivities here. That's what I said earlier. So yeah, this is not really appealing. I think like probably what I should just do is just cast iteration and look for a force and try to force their plow, but like it doesn't really work that well either. So
yeah, and like if they are gonna keep chaining flicker wisps and they get to reset your Murktide to 3/3, that's like not exactly ideal either.
right.
Can we take a shuffle on this ponder?
Well, it's an iteration, so like
I know.
it's. I think I actually, in retrospect, should have just taken the second Murktide and just played both. I think that was kind of bad, but
Did you exile the second Murktide and are gonna play it
oh,
this
I
turn?
did. Never mind.
Yeah,
That was the plan. Never mind. This does make sense.
that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know if it. So I decided not to max it out because my theory was that it would just most likely eat a plow anyways,
Yeah,
or that. So like I got
sure.
so reward. I wonder if I should have just made it like 5/5. And the reason to make it 5/5 is because of Ayaganjo.
Yeah, and then there's like certainly potential that like in some crazy world where you get to untap with it, you just get to grow it by the second one.
Right. Yeah, I'm just casting brainstorm here. This is not good. This probably means like I'm not going to be able to cast many more spells.
Yeah. Definitely running out of gas here.
So here I think you see me make another mistake. And I didn't figure it out until later. So the reason I did it this way was I wanted the second one to grow the first one. But I don't know. Like you'll see what happens in a second. But this is like very awkward versus a card that's literally on the board that they could hypothetically have in hand.
Yeah, I don't know how many copies they're playing of Iganjo.
I think
These days I haven't paid attention because it's not a card that's ever relevant versus me.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't do anything versus you. But when they do this, I'm like, God damn it. Then I think after having realized that, I should have just not blocked.
Yeah.
Like I think this was actually I still could have been okay here. Suppose they just don't have a removal spell and I just play another Murktide even after they port me. Like then I think I'm actually in okay shape again.
Yeah, but now with the mom and
Oh no,
all that is.
I mean it would. I think it would still be hard, but it would be fine. But the one thing I did notice was it was actually hard for me to play the second Murktide because I didn't have a third mana. I only had 4 cards in the graveyard. So
Yeah, you needed the seventh mana somewhere and it just didn't exist anywhere. But
and then I think this like ends it. Like now I'm just like actually dead. But there were things I could have done better that would have maybe given me like a few more percentages here and there. But now I'm just like this board is basically. Well, now brainstorm like. Well, none of those cards do anything, so it's kind of. The thing is, like from a board state like this, it's actually pretty hard for Delver to get out of it because of the Mother of Runes, and I'm not playing Sulfur Elemental. Like, if you played something like Sulfur Elemental, that might actually do it here.
Yeah, that would wipe their board except for the Solitude, and then
then you can block. So like I don't know, like
Yeah. Lots of things that could happen if we had different cards. But I think that like opponent has been recruitering and
yeah.
yeah, our mana has been so constrained the whole game that just like it hasn't worked out. Like we spent what 3 turns without a land in play this game.
Yeah, I mean, like that. Sometimes that's how it goes. Like it's not that likely, but it definitely does happen a non-zero amount.
Yeah, opponent on the read plan to like not even flicker their solitude here. I think that's how you know you're super dead.
I mean, if they just get another recruiter that's resilient to something weird, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it is basically irrelevant, and I just take a draw to see what this finds me. Because you kind of have to make them think. Because like if you just concede right away, then they know that like there's no real way for you to catch up. Whereas if you keep them guessing for a little bit,
Yeah.
it's just. I mean, like it's kind of irrelevant because like it's you're just I don't know. It doesn't actually matter what you do there. You could like vamp tutor every turn and you would still be dead is how I would put it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean Lunal, it's pretty clear that like you can get to
Yeah.
another solitude a multitude of different ways depending
Right.
on how many extra cards you want to pick up along the way and how much mana you want to spend.
So
Uh
on the play I like cutting a force for days because I think like playing one drop creature days their vial like is really good. Like all dazing their 3 drops becomes a bigger possibility.
yeah, definitely.
Alright, this hand has the same problem as the game 2 hand, except you have a 1 drop, so
And you're on the play, which I think is like starkly different.
yeah. Here I don't brainstorm because I need max chances to find a land, but I just find a land immediately anyways, so that's really good.
Yeah.
And now I'm super safe. Well, I'm super safe from dying to Wasteland, rather, is how I would put it.
Yeah.
I actually think Wasteland's not even, like, I don't think you need the Wasteland, and I think you want to prevent clunking up with the second iteration.
That makes sense, yeah. Like the Wasteland's good if they have like exactly Saga, but like I don't even think you care that much about a port.
Right,
And like Thalia's whatever when you have 2 bolts in your hand, right?
right.
So you did choose to redraw the second iteration.
Yeah, I think I think my reasoning there was I think I just might need all of the gas after killing a bunch of their stuff, is how I thought about it. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to keep that or not, actually. That's kind of interesting. But this works out perfectly. I get to use all my mana removing creatures this turn. Probably iteration into a Murktide, so.
Yeah.
And they recruited for the Sash again, so I guess we should assume that they have Barrow Skull in hand.
I mean, I don't. They probably didn't last game. Like they definitely had lots of chances to play it and then didn't. So maybe that's just like their
So,
default here or something.
do you think they sided out the Barrow Skull? Like, that's kind of weird, right?
Or maybe it's just assumed that their Stoneforge gets killed every time, so it's worth it to get the the cheap equipment.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a D&T expert, but like
Yeah.
but now it's like funny because like I feel like one of the reasons to get Lion Sash is that it is supposed to like stop Murktide, but I think it's so mana hungry that it's kind of hard to do that, if I had to guess.
It's also really bad once the Murktide's in play, which is funny.
Right.
Yeah, the interaction of Flicker Wisp to your Murktide definitely came up here, but
Yeah, that's fine.
we have
But
answer anyway, so.
I don't want to ever trade because that makes no sense when I have literally a thing that kills it and maybe another creature in my hand, right? So I think
Yeah.
we should just sit around and see how they build their board.
That makes sense that Lion Sash kills DRC because you play it, they're forced to attack into it, and then you put them back on the ground, and then you just get to eat them or whatever.
Right. So I just need to find removal for that Lion Sash, I think, or something weird has to happen. I don't know.
Yeah, can't quite get Mystic Sanctuary in the face of the Lion Sash, but
So you could do it and just force activation. That would also grow my Murktide, but it's going to grow
true.
my Murktide no matter what. But they also just let it happen. Then I was really confused because I'm just like, shouldn't they stop that? Like,
Yeah, maybe they thought that Murktide did say exile, like it probably should.
but even still, like, why would you want to let me draw? A
Yeah,
why would you want to let me draw an iteration, right? Like that seems like the mistake to me.
yeah,
And now it's going to be a massacre now, like no pun intended.
yeah. You've just like, and now you just have like the full card advantage engine rolling.
Yeah.
Uh,
So like I could just even put force in my hand, force the sash on the way back down if I want to do that. I don't know if I actually want to, but at least now that's an option.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of like not very many choices there. Like you have to put the Brazen Borrower in exile, and you probably want to cast it anyway.
Yeah.
Uh,
Meanwhile, this Delver is not really what I want, or is this one?
or this, yeah. Neither Delver is a thing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the real subtle things about DRC. I think it's hard for you to have bad draws if you have any number of spells and DRC in hand. Like,
Yep. The sculpting factor is a lot of invisible power in Dragon Rage Channeler. Even if it's not literally killing you super fast, it just like smooths everything out to an insane degree.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Basically, how I would explain it is Dover really needs to draw components from each category of its deck every game, and if you fail to draw one part, it's probably like you probably can't win. Yeah, so I clicked on the force. I'm just like, wait, does that even matter? I don't think it actually
yeah,
does.
they just eat your
Yeah.
Darcy and then shrug.
I mean, like, yeah, we were just talking about how good that is, but yeah, like the Spirit of the Labyrinth doesn't matter for obvious reasons. Like,
Yeah, you just scoop up your 2-for-1 here.
yeah, I think so. I don't think you can ever kill Lion Sash with that thing. So
Probably not, no.
yeah, like now, like I still don't think I want to trade the DRC for their thing because I can just hardcast Force on their Lion Sash, and then like if I get Delirium, it's just so much extra damage. So was dazing that worth it? I should have considered it. That's a mistake, but maybe I don't know. Maybe I should have thought about it more.
Yeah, it feels like it works out here though, where
Yeah,
presumably one of the cards they want to play is the Lion Sash.
right.
And so you get to daze that, and then they have to tap out for it, and that feels like it works out. Or you just get to daze this.
Yeah, so I guess it worked out a lot better not to daze it. I don't know if it was right at that point or not.
Yeah.
I'm gonna type too strong. I don't even bother replying because like I don't know, like I don't know them. So all right. So let's see. That's 3 rounds in. Tell you what, chat. I need to use the restroom real quick. We should take 5 or take a few minutes. I'm gonna take a few minutes anyways. So I'll be right back in a sec. I don't know about you.
I mean, is it interesting? We kind of ran out of blue cards to pitch to Force of Will. I mean, we can hardcast it, but we kind of have other things that we want to do with our mana because we have the Brazen Borrower floating. Uh, so I think that like milling it is just what you want to do there because you really just want to close the game. So if you find like a bolt or another removal spell, that's more of what I think I would be looking for at that point and make sense of why we milled it. Uh, we just wanted to make their cards not matter by like not letting them draw anymore because the game was over. I think if they're hellbent, that makes me much less likely to keep it, even though I wasn't going to keep it in general. Yeah, that's kind of true. Is that Murktide is the only card that matters, so you could force a plow. That works. I thought we had 6 mana
What's the
at
question?
the end.
At the end,
If they could port us off force.
we did have 6 mana at the end, but that was with the
Yeah.
sanctuary. So if you daze, I guess it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I think milling the force is good though, because my real concern is. Actually, I don't. I guess I don't have that many concerns there because they never killed the Murktide, right? Like, they never cast Swords of Plowshares on it, right? I don't know. There's probably like some scenario I could construct where. I don't know. I kind of just viewed the forces as a dead draw, but I don't really know why. I guess.
Yeah, my brain also identifies as a dead draw. Maybe it's just because we were like committing to playing iteration next turn. Like iteration plus borrower is kind of where our mana was going. Or whatever.
They casted a plow and turned one over. Yeah, but then they never cast a plow on the Murktide, which made me think that they obviously didn't have one because why would you let yourself get hit by Murktide like 7 times otherwise?
Yeah.
Let's see. We got another match. All right, this is S063, who I believe won the qualifier on Thursday with Blue Red. So I just didn't see a reason that they would switch. Right? It makes no sense. Switch.
Yeah. You keep playing what's working for you, you know.
I mean, the deck is just kind of inherently very, 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 very good. So
yeah, we got our game 1 Pyroblast here to target Murktide and or whatever else we needed to. And you're just probably like cantripping for a threat, right?
It depends. Like, if I'm dying, I usually just cantrip for removal instead, just assuming a threat will show up when I need it. Like, basically, if I'm on the player draw, I kind of play the matchup differently. On the draw, I just cantrip for removal and just like make sure I don't die, and then eventually, like, cast Iteration Sanctuary is how I would put it. Whereas on the play, I'm more willing to like try to leverage the tempo.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean S03 is Alejandro. I actually don't know his last name. I believe he's won an Eternal Weekend. Very good Magic
Alejandro
player.
Younger is what
Yes.
Twitter says.
Yeah. Very good Magic player. Also, hi Mike. You're in the chat.
All right. Like, okay. He was AFK a while, so I sped it up.
Yeah.
Wait, what did I? God damn it! I don't even know what I saw with the ponder. Let's go back to that real quick. All right. I mean, I think generally Hero would keep most things off ponder. I'm definitely keeping that iteration and that fetch.
Yeah, you just get to keep the party moving.
Yeah. The Brazen Borrowers, like, the only reason the Borrowers in the deck is to bounce a Murktide, but it's not really fantastic early game anyways, so.
Yeah, and you already have the Pyroblast to answer the first Murktide. So.
Oh wait, them milling Murktide makes me think they either don't have lands or they have too many Murktides.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Mishra's Baubles, though.
It's 100% of the Baubles.
Well, not. There was a Gold to COD version that played 4 Bauble. I'm just like, this is actually lunacy to play that many Baubles.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm just killing their stuff. I'm gonna just play it slow because I have so many lands. And they force this. I'm just like, what the hell?
I'd be so tempted to blast this.
I think they just have one land. That's really what I feel like. Oh, and then they mill the Delta. So
oh,
I don't know.
What's the days.
I don't know what's going on anymore when they mill the Delta. I like take a screenshot of this. I'm just like, I'm so confused because now like they've traded like so many cards for their 1/1. I was trying
Maybe
to
they just like have multiple Murktides in hand, are just like trying to fill the graveyard really, really fast for them.
but yeah, I don't know. Like in my experience, that plan only kind of works. it doesn't really work all the way through. But that's why I actually kept the borrower, because I'm just like, okay, maybe they only have Murktides, then I'm going to actually need all of the Murktide answers.
Yeah. And I guess this, if they're looking for land 3 to play around Days on Murktide, maybe that's what's happening here.
Yeah, I don't know. This game was just like very weird. Obviously, I just have to cast Brainstorm looking for lands now, because like otherwise you run the risk of getting wasted out.
Speaking of lands.
Yeah. So now it's kind of interesting. I don't know how good this waste is going to be actually, but
Yeah, it's hard to tell from the context of their hand and how they've played, like what matters, because they've sent every signal that nothing matters, basically.
Right.
And maybe their hand is just like a bunch of bolts at this point.
Right. So I think if they're wasting me, I kind of feel like they're off the Murktide again, because otherwise you would just not play the waste unless if you have literally only lands and try to get the Murktide into play through a days, right?
Yeah.
This is something that you should do more often. Just fetch to tap scene vents because the life can cost you. I actually fucked that up later, but we'll get to that. The 2 life definitely is a real cost. Let's not joke around.
Yeah, probably not the first land you want to get, because picking that one up with Days seems less than ideal, but
yeah, it's not great. So I guess the real question is if you play the Murktide or not. And then I decided that I'm okay if they double days me, because I think that's just like a fine exchange, and you know.
yeah. Or if they force it or whatever, I think that like you just make them do something and don't let them sit and recover, because it feels like their hand is not. I think the one thing that you've referred to a lot over this review is that you need to balance the engine of your mixed land spells removal, and
Yeah,
the hand is clearly not balanced, right?
yeah. And I don't even really know why. Like, I feel like it all fell apart for them when they forced my bolt, and then I got to Daze the Force, because that just, like, put them down too many cards, right?
Yeah, like it's possible they kept double bobble and then like the baubles didn't do what they wanted them to
Right.
do.
By the way, this is very interesting. Playing a DRC here into the onboard Murktide is very strange. And now I have to decide if I want to try to block. Then I think about it for a while. I'm just like, I think blocking is wrong because then that lets them trade Unholy Heat and DRC for Murktide if they have that.
Yeah, and
And
they've shown
also,
the third bauble, which is
yeah,
interesting.
and also 7 damage is just too much. You know, like
Yeah,
I
like I
think
think it's like
sorry, I think a lot of people would try to get the free card, but I think 7 damage is worth like 2 cards essentially.
yeah, it's 2 lightning bolts, and also
Yeah,
that's like a lot fewer cards your opponent can draw
right.
uh in the course of the game.
So I
Yeah,
blast this.
I like blasting this one a lot better than the one last turn because our blast can't get dazed here.
Exactly, and also like even if they have a Murktide behind, I can just untap. Okay, so I think that Daze has been in their hand virtually forever, but we just never
Mm.
gave them an opportunity to use it.
Yeah, and I wonder if they're uh trying to just like get more scry triggers or something. I don't know.
I don't know. This game was super weird. Like I didn't really understand this game. Like
Yeah.
I I couldn't figure out why the things happened actually. Basically, I feel like I got all of the 2-from-1s without even trying very hard, and I don't think that should happen.
Yeah. And like if we flip our Delver here, the game just ends. I guess they found a bolt, so it doesn't just end, but
Yeah, I mean, like they're not in good shape. This is also why I
yeah.
don't like trying to block to get the free card because, like, I don't think the free cards matter if my opponent's literally dead.
Hmm. Yeah, and so now opponent can block the Murktide for a turn, but they're just in the abyss.
Yeah, I mean, Murktide hits really hard.
It does do that.
Also, I kind of feel like the Forcible is actually the truck mark now. Like now I can afford to 2-for-1 myself because like I don't think it really matters what spell they play. Like, if it's good enough, I'll force it. Otherwise, I just won't. I just won't. And I think I can improve by finding another blue card. I do. So. Vengevine, I went 6-3, but I think 6-3 is still a good finish. I played 4 mirrors and I went 3-1 in the mirror. I lost to A&T and I lost to White Green Depths. The White Green Depths player did make top 8. But
Now we have Mystic Sanctuary online, which is kind of insane.
Yeah. Why play combo when you can play a Murktide? Yeah, that's like kind of a good question. I don't know. Murktide is kind of a combo card, I guess. Like it.
Yeah.
The way
theoretically combo beats Murktide, and that's the reason to do it. But
I mean, I'm being a little bit like tongue in cheek, but the reason that Murktide's kind of a combo card is just that it hits so hard, like for such little cost.
Yeah, and we don't even need to force their Murktide here because we can borrower it and then protect the borrower with whatever. Or we just get to pick up our Pyroblast too.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to like just they can't really do anything because like it's actually really hard to interact with the Pyroblast in game 1 because it's just so cheap. Like, well, I guess even postboard it's really hard to interact with the Pyroblast too, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
What do I think the strategy or secret in the mirror is? Do not mulligan too much and draw a relatively balanced hand. And try to balance out your hands.
Yeah, I think don't lose is also a secret. Like, I think getting really, really aggressive with trying to win on some of your threats is a great way to lose. Like, I don't know, just like keep chugging along. The Delver train is very hard to stop. If you try to speed up too much, you're going to fall off the rails.
Yeah. And like I said, it really depends on the opponent if you want to end the festivities or not. I don't think this person was likely to play Young Pyromancer, so I don't have it in. Turn 3, empty the Murktide, kill turn 5. That's actually a good way of putting it. It is like I don't know. Anyways, I really just like having a turn 1 removal spell in my opening hand for these matchups because, alright, obviously shuffle. Mm-hmm. Obviously you draw Delta, so that's really good. Because like
easy second land.
Yeah, well, it's just like there's such a huge temptation to waste your opponent once they shuffle and ponder because that's the most likely card they're looking for.
Yep.
What is a bounce hand? A little bit, some selection, some removal, some threats. Also, try to avoid 2 for wanting yourself in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm. There's an interesting thread on Twitter this morning about 2-for-1s in Legacy, like how many exist. I think that someone was trying to like drag out the fact that it's like only expressive iteration, like kind of Knight's Whisper that are playable, and people started mentioning him. I think him just doesn't quite do the same thing as like positive 2-for-1s do. Because positive 2-for-1s play into each other, whereas like negative 2-for-1s just like have diminishing returns.
Right. Also, I missed an opportunity to fetch the tap steam bins again, then I immediately drew it, so that actually is not great. I mean, it kind of looks like this game, it's not going to matter, but it could actually end up mattering like 7 turns from now.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I cannot blast this fast enough. I kind of feel like I kind of feel like they're weak, actually. Ban Croxa? Yeah, Croxa is much worse than Uro, I guess is the comparison being made.
Yeah. Yeah, like when you Croxa someone a lot, it's like whatever, but Uro just like is incredible.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been a very tense game. I think that's the way I would describe it.
I mean, nothing's happening, so I just assume their hand is a bunch of blasts. So I'm trying to get them to burn blasts on cards that are not Iteration or Murktide. That's like I didn't even mention that, but that's the overall game plan here.
Yeah, and Dragon's Rage Channeler being the only threat that's not blastable is like kind of valuable.
Yeah, that's why like when Ragavan was legal, it was kind of weird. Sometimes your blast wouldn't even be that good because they would just open with both
like Ragavan Darcy.
Yeah, exactly, and you would just be like, I don't know what to do. Anyways, I fetched because I wanted to hit my land drop, and I wanted to just like put a blast in my hand just in case of like another whatchamacallit. Another iteration.
Expressive or Murktide or something.
Here I think it's more debatable if you should actually blast this one, but they didn't. I don't know. I felt like it was safe. Well, also I knew I had another blast. Rather, that's why.
Yeah, and if they like feel like they're baiting out this blast to play Murktide, that's fine because we have the blast on top.
Also,
I think that's why you play Blue Blast into killing Dread Hordes.
Yeah. Also, I think the opponent was supposed to bolt my DRC first, just in case if I wanted to surveil. You know.
Yeah.
You should bolt the DRC first, and then play the thing that can be blasted.
Well, I mean, you don't know what you're going to draw off the expressive, right? So you want to conserve your mana to play post expressive iteration.
But they
at some level. I guess they knew about the Power Blast and figured that you should do that.
I have played Hydro Blast at times. I don't think you need to right now, because I think almost all of the threats that matter in the mirror are blue, like including the iteration.
Yeah, there have definitely been Delver eras where Hydro Blast was playable.
Right.
Ren and 6, Dreadhorde, Ragavan. I don't believe that this is currently a Hydro Blast era.
I don't think so either. So look at that. I don't even bother with the Merc because I kind of feel like a way for me to lose is to draw too many of those clunky Mercs and have them all be blasted. But I'm not even sure that's right. I think that might actually be a trap. It's just my opponent's playing so slow and weird that I'm trying to figure it out. Like, this is a very weird game.
Yeah, it's turn 6 and you're both at 18.
Like, and I have 5 cards, they have 4. Like, I don't know, like, do they not play Sanctuary? Is, like, the question.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably going to be answered right here, right?
Okay, and the answer is they do play Sanctuary. Oh, wait. This, I think, is, like, really... They shouldn't have done this. Like, letting me daze to bring back Sanctuary is just such an insane exchange. Like, I think that's game losing right there.
Yeah, like this is just like really dirty.
Yeah. Yeah, I messed it up again. I think I should have just played the Murktide first, then played the Sanctuary to grow at 1. I messed up again. I don't know why I messed that up so much.
I mean, I think it's just like years of like play land before spells so you don't get dazed.
Yeah, that's probably it, but that's obviously not a good reason. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, habits are one thing, but like you got to figure out when to break them.
Yep.
So opponent finally does get to resolve an expressive iteration here. I think every single other one of them has been blasted. Yeah. And I feel like at this point in the game, them finding land off their iteration suggests that it's not a very good iteration.
Right. Or they're going to go for the upkeep blast, I guess, but...
Yeah.
And I think I should just chill in this brainstorm. It's not like I'm in a rush, you know?
Yeah, and like all the cards in your hand are good and you want the shuffle effect or whatever.
Yeah, so I can just wait to draw like another bad land or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
I really think it... Like, I don't know why they played Murktide into Daze. That was, like, really, really weird, right?
Yeah, I think I agree that that's kind of weird.
Like, if you could do anything to prevent that from happening, you should have, I think.
So this is Snap. Pyro on Delver.
Yeah, and I think you basically are just pricing to pyroing that. Otherwise, yes, you want to save pyro for the Murktide, but I think you're just in danger of dying to the snap plus a flurry of removal spells, or
Yeah.
I think eventually you're gonna have to kill it if you don't blast it on the stack. So you might as well just stop them from killing your thing. You know.
Yep. Yeah. There's no reason. I think it's the theory you've been playing this entire match over of don't get 2-for-1 ever.
I don't think this bolt's good enough anymore because I don't think the cards that matter from their side are boltable. And this is nice.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to play either one of them this turn. I feel like.
Yeah, I think that playing our things into days is it's the same reason why them Murktiding into days was bad. They also have the sanctuary and they might have a dead days or something.
Yep.
So yeah, and milling the bolt makes sense because we're further ahead on board than their threats can be. So we're gonna kill them faster. So the only card that they have that matters at this point in the game is the Murktide Regent.
Yep. I'm not sure if I've used more than 2 Power Blasts. I haven't. It's impossible to check the exile in this view, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
So I don't think these mirrors are actually hard to play, but I think what the mirrors actually demand is you don't do things that are too aggressive, or in case of some games, if you're 2 life, you probably should be aggressive and try to turn as quickly as possible because otherwise you'll die to a top deck bolt.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different scenario, obviously, but I think this game I just don't want to take too many risks. If I just play a normal game, I feel like I'm very likely to win.
Yeah, I think that if you're not going to win in the first 4 turns of the game, the games are just going to drag on for forever, and just playing for those eventualities and inevitabilities is where you want to be. And Borrower is just perfect here.
Yep. The chain is not so good, but I think the chain is better than the Snow Island for sure. I don't think the 6 land does anything.
Yeah. I agree. And it's better to have it in your deck to fetch with other lands at this point because there's only 2 fetchables left in the deck.
Yep.
So
Steam Vents and Island.
Yeah. And we get another Surveil here, and yeah.
So I was actually scared if they had Power Blast right there, they would get a nice 2-for-1, right? But I think by that point I have to play into it because that's always going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does Snow Island have any value over regular basic? Not anymore.
Yeah. You can't steal your opponent's Ice Fang Coatl and
no, that was
things.
That was the corner case.
Yeah.
I still have 3.
So I haven't really bluff anymore.
Yeah, I still have 3 Snow Islands in my modern blue-red deck for that reason. But 3 is a lot more than 1, so. Oh, Ace Induce IRL. I used the AFAC. I could have registered the AFAC. I was too lazy. I was too lazy this time. I'm sorry. Just got lazy. Feels like my opponent's just dead again. I don't know. It really feels like this game, my opponent just both of the games, it feels like they 2-for-1 in the wrong direction for basically for free. So it was not that difficult to win, you know?
Yeah. Shrinking your Darcy is a little bit awkward here, but
By the way, do you know that they're dead if you just chain to the face right here?
Yeah, I figured that one out.
Yo, we got a raid from Goblin Lackey 1. Yeah.
What's up?
Alright, so I'm 3-1 by this point. 5 rounds to go. That's one really nice thing about playing this deck. You get a lot of time between rounds if you steamroll your opponent. And some of your games are steamrolls, so you can rest or go do chores or whatever. I actually what I did a lot of this last Sunday was disassemble old decks that had been lying around deck boxes forever, if you saw that.
Yeah, that was a cool thread. I enjoyed the really old Ruby Storm deck back when it played actual Ruby Medallion.
Yeah, that one's a plus for that. Anyways, F Noop, I already knew. One of my friends had played them. They're playing blue red, so it's just another mirror.
Yeah. A lot of times I'll take showers in between rounds, especially if my round finishes in like 5 to 10 minutes, something like
Oh yeah,
that.
love it, love it. Just
Yeah.
do something like there's no. I feel like something that people do too much of is they play too many matches in between rounds and then they waste all of their energy.
Yeah. No, I never play games I never play Magic in between rounds of a tournament.
If it's just
Um,
like goof off casual Magic, that's a different thing. But like actually like playing competitive whatever is like kind of spewing. Unless if you need to learn your deck, like you know, you know.
yeah.
Anyways, they wasted me, and I'm kind of like, this is not the situation I love being in because my second land was Mystic Sanctuary. This is a much dicier game, is how I would put it.
Yeah, I think if opponent dazes this ponder, we're in big trouble. And they're clearly
Well,
thinking about it, right?
if opponent dazes Ponder, I play my waste and attack them for 3 and hope something works out. And I can
Yeah.
never keep those cards, so
Yep.
Daze is probably one of my better draws on average. Like, if it's not going to be a fetch or a blue red source, drawing the Daze is probably way better.
Yeah. It is awkward that we have to pick up our tap land, but it's fine. We'll work through
I
it.
mean, yeah, it's definitely awkward, but this is also awkward. Like, I don't really love this situation. This is kind of dicey. Also, I don't think you can ever daze this ponder. I think if you daze this ponder, you just don't do anything for way too long.
Yeah, I think even if you had a volcanic here, dazing this ponder is suspect.
Yeah. I mean, so if this brainstorm delivers anything good, I'm actually still fine. But I basically have to find a fetch or a blue red land to even compete. That's like that is like a funny draw that's like really bad.
Yeah, that's a blue land. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's not what I need.
Yeah, fortunately, Brainstorm is generally a powerful magic card,
Okay,
so
so Crisis is somewhat averted, but not all the way averted,
yeah.
is how I would put it. Then now you have a lot of options. But I think step one is you're basically almost never going to cast Brainstorm next turn, so you shouldn't like. I basically think you should just do this 100% of the time and waste them.
Yep. Yeah, and
And
it makes 100% sense to kill the Darcy there. Because even though it doesn't look like it's flipped, if you kill the Delver, then the Dragon's Rage Channeler is flipped.
yep,
And it's a Dragon's Rage Channeler, which is just a better card than
right.
Delver of Secrets.
I have to be punished for Sanctuary sometimes, but what if I just wasn't never punished? Did you consider that?
Yeah. Play perfectly, never get punished. That's the way Magic works, right?
I wish.
Yeah, you never flip Echo Tendrils to your ad nauseum. That never happens.
It sounds like it happens to you. Anyways, I cannot play Murktide fast enough here personally.
Yeah.
And I don't think I want to play the DRC. Yeah, if I get wasted, it gets turned off. But I think I can just wait a turn because, like, I think they would have. I don't know. Like, obviously, it is possible that they don't have waste in hand as well. So, like, I don't know. I you could have played the Murktide and the DRC. I just think that's like giving their days a little bit too much value.
Yep. This is how Days is supposed to be played,
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah. This is
clean, wholesome.
pick up my tap plan because I want to shuffle it away with Brainstorm.
Yeah, picking up your land, real big cost here. Yeah,
And
that feels great, and that turns off their Dragon's Rage
yeah.
Channeler and many other good things.
And yeah, like I'm just giving them max respect for days because like they haven't had a chance to play one, so like why would I ever give them a chance to play it?
Yeah, I like attacking with the Delver too. Like we just maintain aerial superiority at this point,
Yeah.
and holding the force makes sense.
Uh, I think letting the surveil resolve makes sense. and then I'm thinking it through. I think probably the reason I didn't like. I don't know. I
I like
think
just
that
forcing this here. I
I
think we're
think
close enough to like ending the game that this makes
yeah.
sense.
I think my conclusion was like I think they can only win if the iteration hits something perfect, and I don't think a single card will do it. And look at that daze that I just like stranded in their hand forever.
Yeah.
All right, Silky Johnson. I already discussed that. I don't want to talk about like bans or ban shit anymore. I did that at the beginning, so like I'm kind of over it now.
Yeah, it's in the VOD. You can scroll through. We talk about it a couple times.
Yeah. Anyways, exact same configuration. I don't really. I guess you have to ask yourself if this person has Young Pyromancer, but I think like some of the Young Pyromancer games you can just win anyways because of Murktide. So like, I don't know.
Yeah, I also don't believe that if I was to take like a random sampling of Delver decks, I don't even know how many of them would actually have Young Pyromancer. I don't even know if that answer is one.
I think the answer would be like less than 10% if I had to
Yeah.
guess. Can we talk about bands? Sure. What band do you like,
That
Mark
mechanic
Dash?
was that mechanic was retired before I was born, so I don't know anything about it.
Well, fortunately for you, I know Mark Dash is like one of the OG boomers. Like, and I actually do mean boomer. He used to talk like on about Magic in IRC. So
Mm.
that's a true boomer. Was the thing on just two baubles? Bad to draw on multiples. Only exists for Dorium.
It's the worst cantrip in Legacy by a pretty long shot, or not worse, but like one of the less good ones.
Also,
Uh,
that sanctuary makes me think they're weak. But you should
yeah,
still play your thing first to play on days. Then you can waste them. And if they bolt,
yep,
so be it. Like I don't care. Like I'm never dazing a bolt here because that's just not good.
yeah. Your threats are all replaceable and interchangeable. It doesn't really matter which one you have. It's not like there's a definitive queen to protect. All your pieces are like bishops, basically. All right, Murktide might be a
And
rook,
I'm just
but
like, and I can't believe they ran that into days there. I actually just can't believe
yeah,
it, dude.
that's
Are people allergic to playing around days like I do? I didn't understand it.
yeah. You see, my problem with playing around days is that half time I play around days and I get wasted, and then I have to play into days anyway.
Yeah, but it's just specifically in these mirrors. I think you actually have a lot more leeway to play around it because you can just like kill their thing
Yeah,
instead, then play a land and say go. And now they're playing around a second days because I think maybe what FNU thought was I would shave dazes on the draw, but my current sideboard plan involves shaving no dazes because of Mystic Sanctuary.
yeah, that makes sense. So like these like days is good in the two cases where you have many lands or have no lands,
Yep.
right? Because if each player just wastelanded each other into oblivion, it's good because nobody has any mana. And it's good in the longer games where people flood out and don't draw the wastelands because you can pick up the sanctuaries and just do that thing.
Yeah, and now I get to shuffle this Sanctuary back into my deck right where it belongs because holy shit, it's just so unpleasant to look at.
Yeah, and that's a
Like,
pretty easy brainstorm to put back the
yeah.
second fetch land as well.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get wasted out. Like I have plenty of lands, and even still, like if they waste me this turn, I can just like choose not to fetch and draw one of the lands. You know?
Yep. That's the power of fetch lands. They're pretty good magic cards.
Yeah, that's why they got banned in Pioneer at the beginning.
Yeah,
A
I think that's a very
format,
reasonable decision from Watsi.
a format that might like pick up steam real soon. Honestly, like
Yeah, especially given that they're giving a lot of respect at the pro level. We found the young Pyromancer player.
yeah, can
Is
Preordain
it going to
replace? Um,
matter?
it's IB from a purely like winning perspective. You should not replace Bauble with Preordain because like it costing zero is like kind of broken with DRC. It's just that I think Preordain has not aged well, is how I would put it.
Yeah. Rain, Modern had only half the fetches for like the first 5 or 6 years of its existence as well.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's the weirdest thing in the world.
So I actually did choose to shuffle despite being wasted because I was afraid that I would die to this young Pyromancer.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting that we did fetch because land 3 is just like Snapcaster Chain Lightning. Though I guess the Chain Lightning is going to be really awkward if they ever leave up double red.
Well, also I'm afraid of days to a certain extent. And yeah, here I think I'm just priced into casting Brainstorm now.
Yeah. And even if we do get days here, we get a little bit of value off of the Surveil trigger, which is fine. And we're just
Yeah.
flying over the Young Pyromancers. I think this is kind of what you pointed out of like, even if you don't put the end of the festivities into your
Yeah.
deck, you can still just like beat it anyway.
Right.
And it's fine.
Yeah, like I'm going to play another flyer this turn. Like the Delver's going to flip on my next turn cycle because I know I'm going to reveal iteration to it, right?
Yeah. Oh no. Our thing.
But there's a spell underneath because I stacked it that way, so it like actually works out perfectly, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing: if they have end of festivities here, it's actually pretty brutal. But I don't think I can really play around it because like I don't think this
Yeah.
Delver does much otherwise.
You also are giving them an exactly 1 turn window to find it,
Exactly,
right?
that's the other thing. Like I just think it's worth it.
And them dazing here is kind of whatever. Like,
Well, them dazing here makes me think they don't have end of the festivities in their deck. Otherwise, like, or like, sorry, it doesn't necessarily mean that. It might mean that they're afraid that they'll take too much damage before they find it because the Delver will flip.
yeah. And they know that we brainstormed, so they know that we know what's on top and all that.
If you're them, do you offer the YP trade then?
I think I would. Like, we already have 3
Yeah.
tokens, and
Mm-hmm.
we know that this Delver is probably going to flip, and you just need to push damage through. Because, like,
Yeah.
are you raising this? Like, you have to have at least 1 removal spell here to do anything. And even then, it's not clear that you still win this game.
Yeah, I think this game, from my perspective, for them, it was kind of lost or was close to losing when they just chose to run the Murktide into days. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's just like, I mean, if they don't have a land, it's defensible, but I also kind of feel like you're just asking for a lot of trouble by doing that.
Mhm.
I'm always leaving the land on top there because like you have to minimize the worst case scenario of DRs or of iteration here where you don't find a 2-for-1 essentially.
Yeah. I think that Brazen Bar is much better in the main deck, Totes Colin, just because like it's better against more random assortment of things, and it lowers your loss percentage to random things like Chalice of the Void
Mm-hmm.
or things like that. And Snapcaster Mage doesn't really do anything there.
Also, Merit Wage is a big one. You know, there's enough things that I think just having a random like blink of an eye or into the royal, whatever you want to call it, is worth a fair amount.
Yeah.
Personally,
Opponent is
sorry. Go ahead.
opponent is dead here, though they might not know it.
Yeah,
But
because I have Snap Chain if they don't kill my creature this turn.
yeah, that is one of the reasons why red iterations of Delver is always so much scarier than the non-red, because you can just like stabilize it to life and nothing mattered. Uh, but these days you can't do that.
So my thought here is, can I play around days? And I realize I can't because if I wait, then I'll just have to like Snap Chain into the days anyways. So you can't actually play around days here. And now
Yeah.
they're dead. I mean, like literally, the Young Pyromancer lived the entire game and it didn't do enough, right?
Yeah.
Besides, they always have Borrower when you have Leech. Yeah, that's if you choose to put Borrower in your deck.
Yep.
All right. So that was a nice clean match. Round 6. Let's see if I can speed it up again. Faster. Okay, so it's M. Mapson. They usually play Green White Depths. This hand's not fantastic, but I think it's fine. I kind of think the matchup is not so good, so you have to get a little bit lucky to win.
Hey, Mapson.
But that's okay. Like, I don't know. I think you can't mulligan this hand, essentially, because you have a 1-drop, you have an answer to Reclaimer, then if you find some spells, you can have a big Merc pretty quickly. So like, I think it's just a mistake to mulligan this probably.
Yeah, and of course Wasteland is good in the matchup too, right? Because it kind of staves off the Merit Lage by some percentage of the time.
Just fast forwarding. All right, opponent goes to 6. But that doesn't really mean that much. Like, I feel like the depths decks mulligan a little bit more than some other decks because of color advance sources, generally speaking, is how I would put it.
Yeah, and you don't have the cantrip cartel to fix things that way.
Unfortunately, my hand's very reactive. Like, that's the problem. Because they're like,
yeah,
this is not a balanced hand, is actually the issue.
Yeah, we kind of needed the Darcy to live to give us that card filtering.
Yeah, because my plan versus them would be to just like turbo. So the real question here is if you want to get lucky. I've decided that I do because they went to 6. So if they just don't have a green source, maybe I can just end the game that way. Unfortunately, they have a Heath right away, so the decision doesn't look great. But I do draw another waste, so that kind of makes it okay. Then I also decide that I think just turboing out this Merc is maybe a reasonable way to win, you know?
Yeah, putting a 4/4 into play isn't bad. I don't think that lava spiking them for the extra
No, that's not
counter
good.
is worth it either. That's kind of insane.
Yeah.
That is the secret hidden mode on Murktide, is that you can just pay mana for it sometimes. It doesn't have Hogak text.
Yeah, this is a 4/4 fire for 3, which is still a broken card. Unfortunately, all my creatures die, and my hand's not very good. I really like this play from them. When they did it, I was just like, God damn it, they know. But I would expect them to know. But I think a lot of people wouldn't do that, and then you get into an awkward staring contest.
Where like exactly this happens.
Yeah. But,
Iteration's a good draw here.
Yeah, I mean, it actually does something. Opposed to doing nothing. That's not a very good iteration, though. But I think I should still take the Murktide and just hope. Because,
yeah.
I think basically I should take Murktide and Waste and, just whatever. The fetch doesn't do that much.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought about this for a while, and the reason to waste is to keep them off Zenith for night. They could very easily just have another land, so I decided not to do it.
Yeah, and then also you kind of get blown up by crop rotation, right?
Yeah. I really just have to get things rolling. Otherwise,
yeah, Wasteland, good magic card, turns out. Finding double 1-mana threat here is kind of key to start doing things.
But maybe I could have played this differently. Okay, maybe... Yeah, okay, this is actually a mistake. What I should actually do is just put the bolt on top. Oh no, this was my plan. Never mind. This does actually make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this makes sense because that also still flips the thing. Unfortunately, I get endurance tier, which is kind of unpleasant.
Yeah, especially given the context of our hand. It's really brutal. When I've just played Delver for funsies and leagues, endurance is definitely a card you lose to. Without the unholy heat in your deck. So
yeah, I'm willing to take those L's. I honestly didn't expect that many endurances this tournament. So remember what my prediction was? It was just 8 cast blue-red mulch lands or lands.
Yeah.
They have a small number of endurances, but it's not a shit ton, so it's kind of whatever.
Yeah. And given the prevalence of Delver, I think you're most likely to run into Delver every round.
Right.
Individually. Which is just kind of crazy.
This looks like a Zenith, yeah. Probably for Reclaimer.
Yep, and it's already... it's not quite active.
Yeah, so I think you just have to bolt it and mill the, what was it? Like, if I put Murktide on top, I'll be sad. But yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
I think I just have to slowly, like... I mean, this was a risk, but that's fine. Like, you have to, like, kind of get through the rotation anyways. So I thought about wasting here.
Were they ever out of green mana to waste the Dark Depths?
Well, they were out
I
of
don't know if
green
that's
mana. Well, like...
true.
Well, no, like, I forced out the bolt by... Or forced out the corruption by bolting, right?
Yeah. It was just coming from the chat. I don't know if there's ever like a great period of time to waste the Dark Depths, and now opponent also has a Wasteland, which starts to play into the...
Yeah. So I think maybe I should have just wasted with the green source tapped and the Reclaimer summoning sick, actually. So maybe I should have done that. What I was afraid of was the second depths naturally from hand, which makes sense for them to be holding. But maybe I shouldn't even worry about that, you know?
Yeah, so now we have action forced, and this doesn't really work out for us.
Right. Toxins is super good with Reclaimer.
So Mapson says that he was baiting you to use the Wasteland, which is interesting.
Also, I'm just doing this to surveil because it's just like, I'm kind of in dire straits. I think the only way I can win is just to turbo out 2 regions by this point and hope it's good enough somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, now I can finally play Murktides, but I think it might be too late. Like, they're really, really slow to kill now.
Yeah. Murktide definitely has downsides. Is not completely free. Especially when you put them all together like that.
Yeah, I've power blasted the Yorion from Death and Taxes a non-zero amount, which is really funny. But it's like I usually just brainstorm away the power blast because it takes way too long for that to be like a real play. By the way, so here they can just waste my waste and step and just whatever I target, or they can just do it now actually, yeah. And it's super awkward because they just rotate for the depths and then make Lage with the Reclaimer.
And then next turn they have Reclaimer to get protection from a color, and we can't get Delirium, so we're just kind of checkmated here.
Yeah, it's awkward. But I am at 22, so that was my only hope. Like,
true.
But it doesn't really work. Like, I bobble, try to grow things, like... I think you have to mill that by this point, because I don't think that, like, actually does anything, you know?
Yeah, you're kind of just looking for Lightning Bolt at some level. Certainly not that card.
Yeah, but, you know, is what it is. I don't know. It basically felt like I was never in this game at any point, but this, like, sort of makes it close, but it's not really that close.
Yeah.
Because I can't even attack this turn is the other issue. Like,
yeah, the Endurance and the Merit Lage both block. And now we're in the situation where we get checkmated by the step. And I just have it from hand. That's brutal.
I wonder if I was actually supposed to jump there. I was trying
to... You couldn't. You couldn't
never
block
mind.
there,
Sorry.
right?
Yeah, no.
And I believe Green White Depths plays 2 steps?
Yeah, it usually does. Like the stock version does, is how I would put it. Bolt is no help, so... I mean, so, like, you could try to get Delirium, but
Yeah, you'd have to do some like play Bolt, Daze My Bolt insanity.
well, so that doesn't even work if they just right click attack all, right? But the reason I
Yeah.
attack first is maybe they'll just chump and then in fear of double bolt, right?
Yep.
So like I think it's actually better to attack first and see what they do. Expedition map, I still think like it's sketch, but obviously it's good here. Tower of the Magistrate is 4 side tokens.
Yeah. Oh, also thanks Newton for the raid. How you doing?
Thanks,
How'd your
Newton.
stream go?
I mean, you can use it for Sculpture Complete, but it's mostly to sneak Lage by side tokens. In my opinion. So I'm trying to see how I can trick them, basically, because that's like the only way anything works, but
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to trick them here, though. Like, it kind of just doesn't work. Also, I'm literally dead to removal spell, but I can never beat removal here.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Not worth playing around, so.
no, it's just like I kind of just have to hope that I get lucky here, and it didn't really work. Like perhaps they don't attack with both, but attacking them with both is just better, so it doesn't really matter. But
especially with us at 2, yeah. Didn't even need the second step.
Alright, I don't want to discuss the second step. I already gave my reasons why I thought I was wrong in a different stream. Anyways, in the vein of trying to get lucky here, what you should do is try to just burn them out, I think, almost all of the games. It's not very reliable plan, but I feel like it's actually your best plan.
Yeah. Definitely not set up to beat green white depths. Like there's a noticeable lack of submerge in R75.
There's one. There's only one, but like one's not really enough, like for a lot of reasons.
Yep.
So I know that they play red, so I actually like shaving on it. It's also kind of awkward versus Bog and Endurance, so like it's actually possible to flood on Murktide in this matchup.
Yeah, and we saw the Taiga in game 1, right? So it's not even like a read or a background knowledge. It's just like there.
Right. And also this hand sucks, so I'm going to 5.
Yep. Abuse our London mulligan.
Yeah, they're thinking for a bit. They kept 7. And I guess this is a plan if they somehow just get too many like non-basics into play. The thing is, like, most people who are competent at playing the deck, it's actually really hard to price them for a lot because they can always like stage depths always just puts you down 2 lands, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know, like this is clearly a reasonable 5-card hand once you've gone to 5.
Yeah, the range of things you're willing to keep is just much more acceptable at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna lose, but like I can't really do anything about it, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking for any threats. Like, basically, I just want threats. I wonder if I actually should have shuffled this. I thought it like I think at the time I decided keeping was fine, but I think in retrospect this is kind of sus.
Yeah, I'm surprised you kept this. Like, I think that like you just were looking actively for a threat, and finding 3 lands is not really what you were looking for.
I think that causes me to lose right here. Like, I should just not have done that. Like, how the fuck am I ever gonna win now? Like, it's like really hard.
I mean, it works out in terms of the fact that like we have replacements for these things, but You know, they have a Reclaimer, and that's really hard to kill. I don't even think that wasting the Volk is that aggressive.
What if they
HC
don't have
Fox.
another land?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
like
don't
also
know.
like grows your Reclaimer kind of.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I don't know. Like, I think you can actually wait a turn to see if you should waste, but the problem with that is, what if I just like play iteration to something, right? Like, so wasting actually might be good to just time walk in a weird sort of way, like just get yourself a turn. But I think wasting when you don't have another land is kind of interesting. I don't know what exactly that means.
yeah, I don't think that playing it is aggressive. I think you just want to play all your lands. Like I don't think that there's reasons to hold it in this
Right.
matchup. That seems very silly.
I think I should have just snapped Ponder right there, actually, in retrospect. Because I don't think, like, the way this game's going, it's going to be really hard to burn them out because one of their lands is effectively Mox Diamond.
Yeah.
And I also just don't have any threats. So, like, what am I hoping for? Like, I don't know. This doesn't really make a lot of sense in retrospect.
Yeah, now opponent has like flipped their Delver, quote unquote. So
I actually do decide to waste this Heath to keep them off night.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, they
Yeah, and
also.
if they go like land knight here, then
Yeah.
like our days gets value, which it hasn't even come close to at any point in this game.
I'm honestly kind of surprised they didn't just get a tapped basic there, right?
Maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. This is like super weird. Like, how does Price of Progress work when Blood Moons play? All of the non-basics are still non-basic. Oh, you
That's
messed
fair.
up. Okay. Yeah, like, so now I feel like I have a shot if they don't draw lands, whereas like I felt like I didn't have a shot before. Oh, the dog was barking. You got distracted. That makes a lot more sense. So, I mean, I'm still not in good shape because that's a 1 minute 3/4, and I'm still not dealing them damage, and this Price of Progress is dead. So I could not daze this
That's a good
fast
one to
enough.
daze.
Yeah, I mean, like, all my lands are literally islands, so.
Yeah.
Alright, so, I mean, I just cast my spells and hope they're good. This is, like, kind
Yeah.
of okay, actually, but.
Starting to do the thing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think bouncing their Reclaimer is a lot better to just keep them off a tutor that turn.
Hmm. Yeah, the bounce into force.
Unfortunately, here's where red card arrives, I'm pretty sure.
Oh.
So I basically got, like, how I said I don't want to 2-for-1 myself if I can avoid it? There, I think I had to, but then obviously the blast was just going to be the end of the game.
Yeah, that was just debilitating. And now they're just presenting the Merit Lage too.
Well, it's not this turn, it's the turn after, so.
Yeah.
But it is hard to deal them a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's lurking just narrowly under the ice.
And also, they
But,
have rotations, and they know with one card in hand I can't do anything about crop rotations, so.
yeah. Yeah, the Delver player going to one card in hand is my favorite thing.
Oh, it means you don't have to worry about anything, really, so.
Yeah.
That's probably why you love it. Alright, alright. Let's just keep going. See round 7. I'm 4-2, so I'm likely dead, but you might as well just try to finish. The prizes are actually pretty good in these events.
Yep.
Because they're gated by QPs. Storm Guys, me, they have a wide range. So, like.
Interesting. I almost always run into them on Delver. I think of them as a
Yeah.
Delver pilot exclusively.
I think they play combo occasionally, but.
Yeah, they're definitely a misnomer. But I guess they're playing a Reanimator this weekend.
Yeah, but fortunately, Mishra's Bauble is actually like the perfect card for the Chancellor Trigger, anyways. But I mean, my hand's really bad versus Reanimators, so that's like kind of irrelevant. But their top
Really?
cards
They're
and
Doomsday Eli? I've never seen them play Doomsday.
I mean,
But
they reveal Chancellor and we bobbled for Entomb, so it's actually impossible for them to be Doomsday, I think.
yeah.
When
Oh,
when
yeah, it's impossible for them to be Doomsday here.
when I played the Rug Arcanus Oko Delver deck, this guy was also always on Rug Delver as well, which I
Mhm.
guess kind of makes sense, like because that deck was really messed up. But
Yeah, that deck was really messed up and really easy to play.
yeah. Also, my hand's really bad.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I think casting the Lava Spike makes sense here.
it's possible I should have just left up the bolt and see if they drew too many cards, then just went like bolt chain. I think
Yeah,
that was
that's
actually
also fair.
better. So like because now suppose they reanimate and suppose hypothetically they like got to some state where they like drew 7 unmasked me, but they didn't even draw 7 because they know that's just like an easy way to lose for no reason essentially.
Yeah. And like 7/7 lifelink, even without that third line of text, is still just like
Yeah, no, it's unbeatable. I wanted to draw Brazen Borrower exactly that turn cycle.
yep.
People who are asking about the Borrower, it would have been like pretty good right there essentially. Another way you could win is to just brainstorm into a bunch of bolts, except now that they have Archon, I think what's going to happen is they're going to make Archon and then you can never win.
Yeah, I think that like Archon is like a very good magic card and is like sometimes better than Gristlebrand.
Oh,
Uh
I think like actually relatively often is better than Gristlebrand because it's like a mini Cruel Ultimatum.
yeah.
And Cruel
And
Ultimatum
clearly
is
just yeah.
it's just like why does it have all of the words on it? Like yeah, I don't know. I basically with the hand I kept I could never beat them. But
Yeah. It's got lines of text. Its text box just disappears over the horizon with how many lines it has on
right.
it. So
So I think in this configuration I have to leave in 2 lightning bolts and that's kind of okay. Also
yeah.
sometimes like I've seen random players do weird shit like try to magus me, even though I don't think it's good to do that really. So like it's not the worst, and also just like occasionally you can like shave a turn off the clock. It's not my favorite card. If I had more like Cluster Storms or whatever, I would have those in instead. But
Yeah.
anyways,
I think that this is a very different matchup than the Storm matchup where you do get a couple turns to like cantrip around and here you just
oh
don't.
yeah, that's why Mulligan that first hand was like actually a trap,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Whereas this hand's like incredible,
Yep.
and I think just pondering here makes sense. If you just find another piece of interaction, the game is like almost a check mark by this point.
Yeah, I think this is tempting to keep, but maybe you're just supposed to shuffle in favor of finding one of your 5 forces.
That's like the worst draw possible.
Yeah, it's like kind of the opposite of whatever we were looking for.
That honestly, that card is not that integral to this matchup. I don't think it does much. It's mostly
Yeah.
just like 7 mana, like do nothing, if that makes sense. So now I'm just like, oh god, is this how it's gonna be? Am I dead now?
They just reanimate the grief.
No, they entomb instead, which is like a lot safer for me, but also scary because I think that means next turn. That's a really good draw though.
Yeah. The
You
ponder
know,
here is definitely like interesting because like if you hit a land, that's obviously the best case scenario. Hitting
well,
second force is great too.
yeah, I mean, I think I just wanted to like I don't think deploying a threat matters. I think basically in all of these scenarios, I would rather just try to have as many layers as possible because the game isn't really about killing them. It's about killing them after you've like stopped their first few attempts.
Yeah, that makes
It,
sense.
it's like the actual opposite of the storm matchup is kind of funny to say. Because like in the storm matchup, you want to deploy your threat because they usually spend a few turns like setting things up, whereas Reanimator's so fast that the opposite is true.
Yeah. Oh, they're playing white for a prismatic ending. Interesting.
I think later I see Underground Sea in one of these games, and that makes me assume show and tell. Obviously, not against me, but
Yeah, I
like
think that there's a wide variety of sideboard colors in play,
yeah,
sideboard colors and stuff that people have played in that deck recently. Like I know that there was an era where they were playing silence as well as like some bounce spells and whatever else. Uh, I think that that's all fine.
I'm just trying to delirium this because I think there's an enormous difference between them being at like 14 or like 12 or 9 or whatever. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I kind of just have to get this over with. Although casting his brainstorm is like not even. I mean, I guess I could.
Yeah. So was there any particular reason why you decided to force of will the reanimate rather than fawning it?
Yeah, it was faithless looting mostly.
Yeah. I guess just like, and then just like afterwards, like, oh, the faithless looting doesn't actually matter.
Well, those faithless lootings came a lot later, right?
There was one the same turn cycle, right? Where they went like reanimate into faithless looting.
Oh, maybe that was just incoherent then.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was maybe that's a mistake. I don't know. I have to think about it. You can consider forcing this actually, and then they might still go for it. Or you could. Okay, actually, yeah, I decided just Surge going first is good. Then I could just brainstorm in response and just hide my good cards.
Yeah. I think I like that.
Yeah, I think this is actually better. And they do have silence. And I'm just like, wow, this is a very weird deck. I take a screenshot because I wanted to know their exact sideboard configuration. And this is like a very strange one. There's a Sarah's Emissary, by the way, in the deck as well.
Yep.
But it's not like if it gets into play and like if it gets into play and names creature, it's not actually very easy for me to beat.
Yeah, you actually have to find the brazen borrower at that point.
Yeah. So I just hide Snap Days because they're my two best cards.
Yep.
And they can have one of these and they can
And
reanimate
I have
grief,
one
but
too.
like I'm not even like the race is actually close, right? That's
Yeah,
kind of the
especially
funny
if
part.
we ever flip this start Dragon's Rage Channeler. So maybe we're supposed to daze any spell they play,
Yeah,
just to flip the Snapcaster into the bin.
I don't think they let me though, which is the problem.
Yeah. To be fair, both the spells in their hand are white spells, so it's not like they have a ton of options. The
But now,
prismatic ending here is kind of brutal.
yeah, but now dazing it doesn't even that doesn't do anything. So like it's
Yeah.
clearly not correct. All right, well, if I lose to this would be so sad. Like,
Yeah. I've definitely lost my share of games where my opponent has like double griefed me on turn one, and it's just like, this isn't even good. Why is this happening to me?
well, have you lost to that more in modern or legacy?
Legacy.
Really, you haven't lost to the ephemerate grief thing in modern a bunch of times?
I don't think I've played against it in modern.
Yeah, interesting. It used to be really popular, but anyways, I just days there. It kind of buys a little bit of time. I flipped to a Mishra's Ball. I'm just like, this is the most sad.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, this would have flipped my other 1 mana 3/3.
But I can actually use the Bauble to try to increase the probability that I flip my Delver, if you know the trick.
Yeah, you just you
Yeah,
bobble yourself and stack the triggers correctly.
yeah, exactly. And I think that that's certainly matters a lot because there's a huge difference between that being a 3/2 and a 1/1.
Yep.
I don't think finding a counterspell matters whatsoever. So that's like kind of okay. So I just stack it the normal way, or stack it.
Yeah, finding a bolt here would be kind of neat. I know there's only one left in the deck, but
They
okay.
silence me, but I'm still winning the race. So it's just like, okay,
Yeah. And nobody's allowed to block, so
nope. I mean, I can't do anything. So literally, if they have like swamp, ritual, exhume, something, they just want to look at my hand, of course. So,
yeah.
that was a bizarre ass game. Like I thought I was gonna. I almost died to this grief.
Yeah. I mean, this is like the fail state of Reanimator, right?
Yeah.
Like they just kind of like sputtered out and drew too many sideboard cards. Like I don't even know why they have prismatic ending in their deck.
I
I
think
guess it's
that's
like,
more palatable because of Grafdigger's Cage from some Delver decks,
yeah,
and it's not really dead. I don't know why they have silence. Like, I think their deck is good enough at getting through counterspells.
yeah, like you can beat 5 forces and 2 surgicals with just discard. I don't think you need the silences.
Yeah. So the way they played, I decided to cut 2 Regents. I possibly should have cut into Regents, but the reason I like Regent is that it's a blue card more than anything
Yep.
else. But like, if they're going to play the way they did in that game, I think having Bolt might be worth it. So, this hand sucks. So, and so I think with regards to Reanimator, I'm more going to keep a hand that looks like this than I am like versus Storm. If that
Yeah, I
makes
think you
sense as
keep this
well.
hand versus Storm, you just lose 10 times out of 10 unless something insane happens.
And they have a
Uh,
chance where I'm just like, fuck, am I dead? And well, they just go turn 1 Entomb, which is a lot better for me instead. So now again, I can use the Bauble to break the trigger.
yeah, I think that's actually interesting about whether or not you pay for the trigger here or you just wasteland them. Uh,
I thought about
like
it
I think that's a
too, but I think it's
yeah.
actually better to do this. So I also still need to find a land. If I don't find a blue land, there's just a chance that I, kind of just get annihilated by something or, whatever.
Mhm.
Fishing the region obviously makes sense, I think.
Yeah. I think I understand like thinking about pitching the expressive iteration, but I don't think you're supposed to pitch one of your 1 mana spells either. So
And now I feel like I'm going to lose, but whatever.
yeah,
And then they don't do anything. I'm like, oh, so what that probably means is they don't have another reanimation spell. Otherwise, they just snap it off, right?
yeah, I think I agree with that. Like their hand is like I don't know, maybe some reactive stuff.
And there we go. I'm just the biggest luck sack for not dying for like 2 turns in a row.
Yeah, and so you're intending to cast brainstorm here rather than develop a threat.
Yeah, because it's like kind of the same thing. So yeah, you can do that and just play. I would just play one of the Delvers out, honestly. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, Silky Johnson, if we had cast Forceful, it would have been countered by their Chancellor of the Annex, so it would not have been very profitable for us.
exactly. That's why they knew it was safe to cast Entomb on their turn 1. And now I'm going to play the Chancellor because I think the other Delver is better as a pitch card.
Yeah. And we're not far away from like turning on this Dragon Rage Channeler either. We need creature or sorcery, which is way easier to get as card types. So
Right. We have Artifact, which is one of the harder ones, but
if an opponent has 7 cards and still doesn't do anything, which like is their hand just like mono reanimation targets? Like
I guess so. I mean, like, I don't know. I think I probably find out in a bit, but not yet.
yeah.
Here I'm considering if I should play another Delver out, and I don't think I should, but we'll see what I do.
I think it's reasonable to play out the second Delver because you still have 2 pitch cards for Force, right? Like you're not thrilled about pitching the iteration, but it's fine.
Yeah, I guess.
Uh,
I'm just like, okay, this is like that does not matter. That actually makes it
yeah,
better that I played out a Delver, right? I feel like
yeah. I don't know. Fighting on that axis is just so insane to me. Like I don't think that that makes sense. Like I mean, obviously the endings are in there for Cage or whatever because that's way more
yeah,
important, but
pretty much.
it's just kind of crazy.
I think you want to just leave that on top because this is guaranteed a blue card. And this is
Yeah,
kind of fine. Like, I mean, this doesn't kill them that fast, but, you know. I'm going after the white source. I don't think the blue source matters whatsoever.
yeah, I agree. I think that they have blue cards in their deck at this point, and we have the screenshot too, or you had the screenshot, so
Yeah,
you knew
they didn't have show and
there
tell
were.
in versus me. I think it would also be a
Yeah,
mistake for them to side in because it just costs so much mana.
yeah. Like you're a really bad show and tell deck versus a deck that like kind of push show and tell out of existence. So
It depends on the version. I've lost some to like green sneak and show, like literally just sneak and show splashing veil and carpet, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think it's like an amazing deck. I think it's like maybe a deck that has a better Delver blue or Delver matchup than regular Sneak and Show does, which doesn't really say a lot about the deck, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think when JPA puts down the show and tells, it's probably time for you also
Right.
to put down the show and tells.
The stream is missing Bryant bullying Viverus. This is not what this stream is about. Because Bryant had a like fantasy baseball draft to do or whatever. I don't know. Something Mets.
Yeah, sports ball, whatever.
Snapcaster is kind of gas here, but it also kind of doesn't matter. Anyways, I force this because I kind of hope they just like try to reanimate something that I search for them, like because it'll trade for a force anyways, and I get 2 surveils, so it's kind of weird. They entomb for Faithless Looting, you know that's like a sign of weakness.
Yeah, that's never a good time when that's happening.
Nope, not really. Kind of looks to me like they're dead. Grief.
Yeah.
With 1 card. You can grief me, pal.
Our 2 cards will beat your 1 card. I think.
So that was a weird game. Like obviously it went long and like I got a little bit lucky, but I also think they just had to keep their hand because they didn't Entomb Exhume Chancellor 2 lands, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely like a thing is like you see it. Yeah, it was a keep and then it just didn't pan out for them. We also drew a lot of forces off of our cantrips, which is always neat. So
yeah, I don't even have that many. I have like 5. Right.
yeah.
Let's see. Master. Watu. Okay. For those of you who don't know, this is probably one of the better players than Torment. Not necessarily one of the better legacy players, like, but he's very skilled at playing Azorius style decks. Is how I would put it.
Yeah.
Or Blue style decks. This is Wafotapa. For those of you who
Yeah.
are wondering, I am of the opinion that those decks are horrible. Like I don't know how to put it except I just think they fucking suck. Like the straight blue white or blue white red decks, I think they're just really bad. I don't mean that as an attack on Wafo. I think he just plays them really well and wins a lot more than other people do with them. But I think he would win more if he just played a better deck. You know?
Yeah, that's definitely reasonable. That there are some people out there that should just like pick up a better deck and put down the nonsense that they've like gotten used to.
Yeah. Anyways, I think this is just like, you know, we all know what the terms of engagement are here. This is a person who probably has multiple Supreme Verdicts in their deck. They just want to drag the game out into like, you know, some sort of like dirtily planeswalker and win the game that way, you know?
Yeah. And we're just gonna try to jam infinite threats into infinite 1-mana removal spells.
Yeah, I mean, like, I I I think this matchup would be a lot better if I had Court of Cunning. This is like the matchup for Court of Cunning, if those of you who are wondering.
Yeah. I would shuffle this Ponder, but I guess like it also does the Mystic Sanctuary thing, so that might change the equation.
I did shuffle it because I think flooding out versus Zori's deck is a good way to lose. Like,
yeah.
I think that's the reality. Are you saying you should stop playing Sultai cards you own? I'm not here to do anything about your happiness. If it makes you happy, you should probably keep doing it. I'm merely saying from a pure winning perspective, that's probably not the best for your win percentage. Is the best way of putting it.
Also, this is probably too many Force of Wills for this matchup.
Yeah. I mean, also like, I think the reality is I just want to like.
Ugh.
Yeah, this is not good, but now I have to decide how I want to play this. Like,
I think also casting this Brainstorm is slightly maniacal into the 3 open mana. Like if you get Hullbreacher, that's
but
like.
I know Wafo's latest list. He doesn't play any of those. He only plays Narsets.
Oh, he doesn't play Hullbreacher? That's
no. So he's like he's like blue white red with okay, yeah. That card's kind of a joke. I feel like the reason to play that card is it lets the control decks beat Field of the Dead or Death and Taxes in a prolonged game. No joke, but I think it's like kind of a joke card. in this format.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that Brian Koval is the most known shark token aficionado, and Brian Koval is also in that category of good enough to win with whatever he wants to play.
I'm posting a deck list for someone. I didn't bother posting my deck list anywhere because it's literally on Goldfish. Like,
Yeah.
I get lazy by that standpoint, but you know. Anyways, it's very clear what the plan is here. I'm only going to be able to kill my opponent with this Murktide Regent and nothing else because I have no cantrips left. I know I'm drawing a Lightning Bolt next turn, so it's like I can't even really improve very much, you know?
Yeah. And like being a 7/7 is a pretty big breakpoint too in terms of the clock. So we might just like
Yep.
point our lightning bolt at this shark token
No,
if
you absolutely do because it converts 3 damage to 7. Like
Yep.
that's just like that's a fire blast.
Yeah, you don't even have to sack your lands.
Yeah, I mean I have a bunch of useless lands anyways because I also looked at Waffle's list. He has like 6 fucking basics. I'm just like these are the worst possible wastelands. The only reason to leave them in postboard is to like cast Snapcaster or like tap them to cast Murktide. Really, like they don't really do very much else, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think y'all can watch this side of the match. I think it was on one of his VODs. I'm pretty sure he was streaming this because I checked in after the match and went back and watched it.
Yeah, so I wonder if okay.
I'm just pitching Daze every time. Daze is like completely useless now.
I agree.
HC Fox, I'm really in the middle of stuff. I'll do that after we finish reviewing.
We got to connect, so that's kind of neat.
I think that means they don't have a plow. Because like
Yeah.
what kind of like Waffle has patience. I think it's beyond patience to not plow there. I think that's just maniacal. So I'm pretty sure he just doesn't have a plow.
Yeah, I wonder if playing the wasteland is also slightly maniacal. Though I guess it does build towards hardcast force.
That was my reasoning. I have a force in my hand.
Yeah.
So like if somehow like suppose Waffle like top decks a plows this, I draw a land, I want to play it out, then I'll have force up. Alright, so kind of stole that one. Like that was my 6-card hand. And then I looked at his deck and I'm just like, this is not a control matchup where like pricing them is actually good. So I'm looking at this chain lightning and wastelands in suspicion. So
Yeah.
and
Those do be suspicious.
yeah, and all right, I'm going to just cut off the memes about surgical. I think it's actually pretty good versus a deck like Waffles, especially the fact if you consider his last list had 2 Timeless Dragon, and that's like actually a really annoying card.
Yeah. I imagine we still want the Power Blasts here. They just haven't moved their way into the main deck yet.
Yeah, I'm just figuring things out still. So I think I leave in a small number of bolts to keep them honest. I don't like having all of them in. I would like it more if Price of Progress were live versus version, but if you just look at Waffle's deck, there's just like there's 6 basic lands.
Plays Savine's Reclamation?
I think it's in his sideboard, yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, I think it's okay to cut exactly 1 or 2 mercs versus style of deck because they just have like infinite plows, blasts, like you know. This is a shit hand, so
yeah, we put this one back in the deck.
Yeah. And this is like I would say this is actually low end keepable, but it is keepable. Alright, so hold on. Let's stop for a sec. What does it mean if he goes Island Brainstorm?
That to me that says that he doesn't have any other lands and he cannot afford to get this brainstorm dazed.
Yeah, that is what I also think. And I'm just like, this is something. That's all. What else can I say? It's literally just something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, either that or like, I don't know. If your opponent didn't have the brand name of their current account, like
Yeah.
you just suspect that they are like have no idea what they're doing, but that's
Yeah.
like not the case. You have to respect your opponent a little bit more
Yeah.
than that.
And this is actually a pretty good ponder, all things considering.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever really want to cast the Force of Will if I can avoid it. So and he misses his land. Who could have seen that coming after the turn 1 brainstorm?
Yeah. I think it's really interesting to fetch Mountain there over Plains.
I would 100% believe Blast, so that's why I'm not trying to run iteration into the Delver, right?
Oh, it screams Blast, right?
Yeah, and well, I mean, there's the Blast. He was about to discard, which is why I think he did this. So now I'm obviously just casting the iteration. I'm actually kind of happy to draw the Force. I'm not going to run into a Blast, but it's just like as it's a safety blanket, right?
You know? Yeah, it's just nice to have.
So you can
actually get to be flustered here, right?
Well, sort of. I have to pick up my land, but this is a fine exchange.
Yeah, I mean they kind of deny you a card off the iteration, as well, but
no, I can still play a land off of it.
Oh, it's turn 4. My bad.
Yeah, I mean this is not ideal. This is like not really a card, but
yeah.
I mean, I definitely do not want to put this Mystic Sanctuary in my hand, so it's like pretty obvious what I should do. Hello, Lava Spike. I mean, it's a free card, so like whatever. But
yeah, it's fine.
And now, yeah, I mean, like the plan is to just like run unimportant cards into real spells and hope to draw like something.
Riptide.
And like this EOT Sanguine, I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, this doesn't even do anything.
It's like tempting to blast because it's a spell that they're playing, but like it probably doesn't matter. Like you just want to blast any cantrip that comes out, and that's like way more important. And this card like actually doesn't matter.
And he's attacking you. I'm just like, what the hell?
Yeah, now you just get to guarantee your Delver flips and cast another iteration.
Yeah.
I guess like if you're playing not to discard a card, then like that makes sense. But
so I actually decided not even to do it because I like the problem is like it's actually good to just draw a random spell, and I have a soft read on Blast here from them. Like it is so likely they have a second Blast in their hand by this point.
Yeah, and like that's the other thing too is that they fetched Mountain in their like blue-white small R deck. So like I think you only fetch Mountain if you have multiple blasts in hand.
Exactly, yeah.
And like maybe not as many white spells.
Alright, okay, hold on. Pedro says if my opponent had white mana, you never won this game. They chose to keep a one-lander. I'm like 99% sure of this. Actually, I went back and watched, and he literally kept a one-lander with Brainstorm. So, like, yes, but my opponent chose to keep this hand. So, like, yes, I'm getting lucky, but they could have also just mulligan. So
yeah, the mulligan button's really powerful.
I don't understand why you're acting like. I mean, obviously I got lucky, but what do you want me to say? Anyways, I just like I'm kind of irritated by that comment because I feel like it's a pointless comment to make. It doesn't really say anything except the fact that they could have just had a hand that didn't look like this. Pedro, confirm, deny. The opponent chose to keep 7 and cast Brainstorm on turn 1. And that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, I mean that's a big decision to make. I think like blasting to play the color denial game here makes a lot of sense. Like they chose to set the terms of engagement of my opponent gets to prevent me from having white mana for the rest of the game. And we're just like punishing them for that decision. So
and yeah, now I finally decided if they blast this, what I can do is just fetch Sanctuary for iteration and cast iteration, so I'm like, I'm okay with
Please blast
that.
this? Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think into the average player, I wouldn't make this brainstorm because there's probably Hull Breacher, but knowing that Waffle doesn't have Hull Breacher is
Well, I mean, my hand's super safe for Soul Breacher. Like, what?
yeah.
Well, what
And
does
then
Soul
also
Breacher
it's
do?
yeah, it just never resolves. Gas. Yeah. And like we're even if like and like if opponent's playing Supreme Verdict, then like there's still like at least 2 draw steps away from that, right?
Exactly, yeah. Yep. So I think what I can do is just, sometimes I slow play. Here, there's actually zero reason to slow play your creatures, because what'll happen is they'll just be under the gun by so much that like it doesn't work. I mean, I guess if they had literally like engineered explosives, I guess I would get obliterated. But I don't think I've seen anyone play E in a long time in Legacy in this type of deck.
Yeah, and then also there's like a pretty good chance that like you get to like make the E not relevant given the forced double days in your hand.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. And also, he took the damage from the Delver and then blasted it end step. It's kind of that's.
Yeah, that's a little bit too patient.
I think so too. Like, because I think if your plan is to draw white to ruin my stuff, you actually need to buy draw steps to preserve your life total, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I kind of feel like if I was in a seat, I actually went back and reviewed the hand. I wouldn't have kept that hand versus blue red. And second, there, I don't know if he knows this. A lot of Delver pilots versus that type of deck would just shave on Wasteland. So the fact that it was Vista that had to fetch Mountain actually probably cost him a bunch. But I do think he probably doesn't play Plateau, so it's like kind of irrelevant as well.
Because yeah, and even if you have Plateau, I think you're just so unlikely to fetch it there. So like if that's like Island Volk, I think that that's like about the same situation.
All right. I know the next match is long, so we should probably take a few minutes break. I know this because I literally went into the red on this match, and my opponent also did. So, it's versus Mental Misstep, quite a good player. So that's why I remember it as well. So I'll be right back in a sec. All right, I'm back. Let's see, we got. All right. Well,
I think your average 6 in so many spots is better than a bad 7.
I agree. I think just any hand that has like Island Cantrip Flooded Trend is just way better. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, just a 2-lander with a cantrip, I think, is significantly better. All right.
Yeah, we're in the world of London. Use your mulligan button. Don't get greedy.
All right. I do owe this silly sound, so you'll get to hear it too. That's the sound that whatever that instrument calls minotaurs, the didgeridoo or elf horn. So
Didgeridoo.
yeah, that card's really good. For some definition, really good. All right, I'm gonna speed up this one too because it goes on for a while. Also, it's really late for him, if I recall correctly. Let's see, faster. All right, we're on 1.6. 1.6 speed. I called him a Muppet because it's an in joke. I find this very offensive. Jarvis VLC emote for recaps with me wearing a cone on my head? No thanks. I'm already wearing like a headset on top of my head. That's good enough. I don't forget. I think he might have been like finishing up some other match because like he just started a league or something. I don't know. Jarvis dunce cap hog. I'm off it. These ideas suck, Twitch chat. So do you know about S-Pig?
I don't think I've ever used the Moto emotes.
Yeah, there's basically there's like a bunch of coded emotes in if you know the exact right string to put in, which is kind of funny. Anyways, opponent mulligans goes to 6. We both know what's up. The sanctuary tapped makes me think weakness again, but
is there no like desire to wasteland the sanctuary there?
Nah, I think basically I want to go after his blue red sources.
That's reasonable.
Oh, I guess I did decide it was right on the next turn. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, I would have like I think if you're gonna wasteland the Mystic Sanctuary, you just like do it.
So one thing that can actually come up is wasting the sanctuary is often better than wasting like the third blue red source because it can't be dazed back, which is kind of funny to talk about.
Yeah.
Also, I'm dazing here. Am I? No, actually, I think it's wrong to daze here. Yeah, I think you're supposed to just let it go and just. I hate this in retrospect because I think what I would try to pursue is just a protected Murktide the next turn, right?
That's reasonable, yeah. I mean, you also have like classic turn 3 Delver Mirror of no basics in play or like no permanents in play. Because now this game definitely gets like more protracted, where this Murktide is a lot harder to do things.
Yep. So I think next turn I can just play a Murktide through anything except Pyroblast, but the Pyroblast is always going to trade with it, so you might as well just, do the thing. And I think the bolts are really not necessary right now, which is kind of funny because like normally they'd be like pretty good in this spot, but I think I just want to shuffle them away and kind of just play a Murktide and see if it beats them up,
Yeah, I mean, it feels like you could also have the read that opponent has Murktides in hand, because I don't think you would normally sandbag threats in this matchup.
Yeah. You generally, yeah, I mean, you generally don't because like basically everything trades off. Kind of sad that it goes like this, but I think it's actually pretty safe to force because that's the only Pyroblast in their deck. So they force back. And then now the real question is if you force again. Problem is if you force again, you're actually down to nothing and your iteration's like kind of unprotected. So I think actually letting it die after the first force is kind of fine.
Yeah, I would have been really tempted to keep fighting there and then probably lose the game because I'm not good at Delver. And I think it would be an interesting question about which card you keep, and it's probably expressive because, like, if you keep Daze to beat their Murktide, then it's just like you've turned this game into a top deck battle, and I don't know who that favors. That just kind of like throws it into the wind. Whereas this way, I think that like you can still just be super favored in this game state.
The other issue is, if I force back, they just make an 8/8 Murktide to my 7/7, so you actually can't really force again.
Yeah, because you clearly have to pitch the Daze, right?
Right. I think just bobbling them to figure out what's going on is good. Top card's
Those are
daze.
days.
So the question is if you daze here.
You know you can win this fight, and you know that they're drawing a daze. I would have been.
I
I
wonder
think I
why I
would have dazed
didn't.
there.
I think the reason I didn't was I was hoping I would draw a fetch and just fetch the iteration back. Is probably what's going on.
Yeah.
But I get super rewarded by not dazing for this.
I mean, you would have been able to daze the Murktide anyway, right?
Well, I knew about their days, right?
Right. Yeah.
So this is a much better. This is just a weird stack battle that, like, it's turn 8 and like somehow all of the dazes were still alive, right?
Yeah. I
And
mean, Delver mirrors.
well, now I'm super far ahead because I'm look.
Oh, did we
It's
see the bolt? That might also change the
oh
equation there.
maybe. Oh, I saw the bolt. That's why. Yeah. Then of course this is correct.
Yeah, it's a little bit faster, not quite keeping up all the way.
Oh sure. I could lower it a little bit. I just wanted to like speed through it
No,
because I
it's
know
fine.
this one's kind of a long one.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I just missed that slightly.
Yeah. No, obviously if I see the bolt, then just like dazing that makes no sense, and then it actually basically worked out as well as possible.
Yeah.
I already discussed bans earlier, and I gave my opinion. I'll give you the short answer. If you really want to do something to the shell, you should really. I mean, I don't think it just helps to keep banning threats. So, and that's all I'll say. Oh, I can add that command.
Unlucky.
I think it was like it probably wasn't Onrog, but it was probably like Ved or someone who just kept. Oh, I think it was Tony. He just kept making like weird ass commands, so I just like turned it off.
That sounds like something that would happen with
Yes,
Tony.
that exactly sounds like the most Tony possible, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and also again, crazy iteration of this Delver, this era of Delvers that you're keeping this land, and it's just like one of the better cards you could find here.
Yeah, because I don't know like how is Stefan going to win from the top decked iteration here essentially.
Yeah, you're just like a million cards ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's got 6 and you have 9.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's just crazy that I've gotten to this many cards ahead of him. Just I don't know. Like I kind of think once the sanctuaries got started being put into his deck, these mirrors got a lot less fun because it's like the late game is so insanely stupid. Like it like Days becomes like pretty good again in the late game somehow, which is kind of funny, and like you just have to like kind of I don't know. It just got super weird.
Yeah. Do you feel like this is one of the more fun iterations of Delver?
Um, I don't really know how to answer. I feel like the answer is probably not, but I also like fun is like really subjective, right?
Yeah, that's fair. I think that personally, I think that this is like one of the more boring iterations of
Mm-hmm.
the deck, where it's just like a bunch of really boring threats and not very interesting spells.
Right.
But like that's again very subjective. So
How many mirrors did
we
I
play
play? This is my
4
fourth mirror,
mirrors.
and this is the last round of the tournament. And Stefan
Yeah.
concedes once I reveal Fire Blast. I just got super far ahead there because he mulliganed, and like I got to like Sanctuary a bunch of shit. Anyways, I said we're exactly the same. Like, yes, sometimes you should play the opponent, but Stefan's also not the type of person who would walk into end the festivities. So like, literally, there's no other good cards for me to have. Like, this is literally it.
Yeah.
Wow, Twitch chat just has its opinions on which is fun, Delver.
I mean, I'm sure that everyone has their favorite iteration of Delver.
I
I
mean,
enjoyed playing the Dreadhorde deck a lot. That was fun. It's very
my
silly, but it was fun.
my favorite iteration of Delver is whichever one has won me the most money, and I don't know
You
which
know,
one that is.
that's not shocking that that's your opinion.
Anyways, I don't actually like casting Ponder early here because I don't know if I'll need lands or not. If he just like starts wasting me, then I'll need lands. But like if that's the case, just taking blind draw steps is actually kind of good to get more information. You know.
Yeah.
Well, he wasted me, so now I know I should probably ponder for lands.
Yeah. I don't know. You have this weird like upkeep wasteland thing
That's a
happening these
Stefan thing.
days.
I don't remember why. He gave a reason and he told me why he did it, and then I literally just could never remember what he said. Like I just don't. He has a reason for it. I just don't remember what it is.
Yeah, a lot of other players have picked it up recently, and I still just don't understand why. The it I and like here it especially doesn't make sense because you let you untap your volcanic. Like if you had an instant, that would have been like I don't know, good for
Yeah,
you.
I don't know. I literally have no idea. And this is super awkward. And now I'm kind of just like, do I have to keep this? The Sanctuary's in the wrong place, but it's a blue source, so like I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame you for shuffling that.
I kept it to try to minimize risk, but I think that might have been a mistake actually. And look, another waste. I'm just like, God, this is so miserable. This is like super. And now I'm fucked. Like
Yeah,
because,
I think that the game ends here. Like opponent has successfully resolved 3 wastelands and beat you. Yeah, I guess the stifle argument exists, but like I think if you're playing stifle, you're just wrong. Like that's just not a card that should be in your deck in 2022.
right. And my wasteland doesn't really do anything except kill his Volk, so you might as well just use it anyways.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
mean, this is classic Delver Mirror of one player gets to cast all the spells and the other one is desperately trying to like claw mana base together.
And yeah, if I'm him, I cannot daze this faster. Like, yeah, this is kind of like this is a painful way to die because I'm pretty sure I am gonna die. It's just gonna take a while
Yeah.
because like he's not actually killing me very fast. He has a bunch of lands, but I would guess by this point his hand's probably like a Power Blast, but he just doesn't even want to use it on that like Delver because it doesn't really matter, you know.
Yeah, I would snap send my Delver into the Darcy, but I guess like
But on the
uh
same hand, he only has two types, right?
yeah,
So what I want to do is not let him deal me damage and hope give myself time to draw lands.
that's fair.
Like I don't think you actually want to like attack. I think you want to just
You just need to buy more time.
yeah,
That makes
exactly.
sense.
Yeah. Finally drew a land.
Yeah. And opponent is a little bit flooded here, but they do have Mystic Sanctuary online, so they can rebuy their Brainstorm if they want.
And I think he does
Uh,
that, and I'm just like, wow, that's like your hand has to be like not great to do that, right?
yeah.
I mean, if his hand was just like three lands, I'm pretty sure this is correct to do this, you know, because then that's like an ancestral recall right there. But
Hmm.
yeah, I feel like I'm slowly losing. Although, like, I'm not even dying that fast, so it's kind of interesting still. Again, what I'm really trying to avoid is if you ever give your opponent value on days here, I think you kind of lose on the spot.
Yeah. And it's not like opponent is like snowballing and we need to take game actions and play into days. Uh, like that pressure isn't on us. Um,
I mean, I'm kind of just a sitting duck because there is one more wasteland in the deck, and if it hits my Volk, it's going to be really hard to do anything meaningful. But I also
yeah.
think like rushing with these human spells into days to allow him to pick up Brainstorm or Bolt is like actually a pretty good way to lose as well.
Yeah, like once your opponent has established the sanctuary advantage, is like their days has become so much more threatening. And just yeah, it's just impossible.
It's just really hard to run out of spells once you have Sanctuary whatsoever, like in this scenario. So
Yeah. Yeah, opponent has very successfully moved lots of cards out of their hand and into the and onto the battlefield, which is
right,
generally a good place for them to be.
yeah.
This bolt's kind of neat though.
I think I just want to cast Brainstorm looking for a land. And I finally find a land.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure my Daze is worthless by this point. Well, I
I
put
think I
it.
tend to agree.
Yeah, if I'm playing an iteration back, I think that's really wrong. But I think really what I want to have happen is, oh, here I actually fucked up. I should just leave the fetch there, lead with the bolt, and see if I have to play around Daze.
Yeah, because now you have to shock yourself, and it's just
Yeah,
like real awkward.
yeah, I think this actually might come back to bite me because like it's not like I'm so far ahead on board that like I can never die. Like in fact, the opposite's true. You know.
Yeah, and you're not allowed to Pyroblast this Delver either for the same reason of still playing around days.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
super awkward because like I actually let's see, one, two, three. I don't have any Volks left, so the only fetchable land left on my deck is Island.
yeah,
Yeah, so I'm probably going to die, but like it is what it is. I'm just
yeah, and like hopefully these expressives can dig us into something that matters. But
yeah, I just have so many of them. That's the problem. Like it's actually hard for me to like double spell a lot because I just don't have a lot of lands left in my deck, right?
yeah, hilariously, we actually have one fewer card in library than opponent.
Yeah, it doesn't really come down to decking though, because you can always like
Yeah,
days reset your sanctuary. Like that actually doesn't really happen very often, in my
yep,
opinion. So I think I just lead with Pyroblast to see what's up.
makes sense.
I think I actually cast an iteration here because I'm just so clogged on them, and if I get wasted off a red, it just takes so long to cast things. And I can cast any 1 mana cantrip off there. They can daze the 1 mana cantrip, but I think that's fine. Or I can just cast a Murktide actually. I guess that makes sense as well. I mean
Yeah,
that
casting
would.
the Murktide makes sense.
I think the problem is I just have too many 2 mana spells. Like I'm not gonna have time to deploy all of them if he ever draws another wasteland, right?
Yeah,
There
which
it
speaking
is.
of,
Yeah. But he actually goes after the sanctuary, which is kind of interesting. I think a lot of people would go for a red source there, and I think Stefan's actually correct. Yeah, this is super awkward because the lands are no longer good hits, right? Because there's
yeah,
literally no lands left on my deck.
yeah,
I just
that's a screenshot.
yeah,
Yeah.
so this is awkward as hell. Like
Yeah, like I think that like having like removed your Mystic Sanctuary, like so we drew what, one wasteland?
yeah,
I don't
there's
know. I guess it's hard to tell because like there's a bunch of cards exiled at this point, but
so the reason to play that fetch out is if I daze plus brainstorm a land back into my deck, then I can refetch it.
yeah, it's more useful than just like consigning a card to be exiled.
Yeah, pretty much. So I
Yeah, gotta
decided,
attack spirit
yeah.
attacking at some point.
The problem
Like
was he actually foresaw this and he sandbagged a Pyroblast, I'm pretty sure is what happened. Because he waited so long on the Pyroblast, I didn't think he had it, but now like this damage race is good for him because of the life totals, right?
yeah,
And remember the 2 extra damage I took from Steam Vents? I think that's going to matter a lot now.
yeah, and like we can't like cast Snapcaster and do anything because anything that Snapcaster does gets dazed,
Yeah,
which is really bad.
God, the days thing is so irritating. Like,
Yeah, that's such a bind.
I think it would be fine if it was just days without the sanctuary, but it's because of the sanctuary rebuying something good that it's just a huge threat, you know?
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not allowed to attack anymore.
Mhm. Funnily enough, opponent has drawn 0 expressive iterations
Yeah,
that we
but
that we know about.
it's kind of funny. I think that's just a sign of how good he is. He's managed this game so well that he's been able to keep up. Mostly because of the wastelands, I think, actually. Because I think if I
Yeah,
was just at full power level, being able to cast like 2 spells per turn without these iterations, I don't think the game would actually look like this, personally.
yeah. So this wasteland is actually super huge, right? Because this takes away all the days scare. Um,
Yeah, I'm kind of scared of dying, but he just got okay. Now I remember. Maybe
oh,
I should have just wasted first here, right?
yeah. That's I think he just decided that you weren't ever going to play into days, so he just wanted to like bounce the thing and get it done and over with,
God,
which is
yeah,
especially brutal for you here. Just like whatever.
yeah. But now do I even waste the vault? Yeah, actually, you should still waste a land here
Yeah,
because it keeps them off Sanctuary.
for much longer, and we decide not to.
Well, I just wanted to
Or I
see what.
guess
Wait, oh, this is bad. I'm pretty sure I was. Yeah, I get mega punished.
yeah.
So the good thing is, I know their top card, or I know their card in hand is Mystic Sanctuary. I'm pretty sure, right? Or it could be the
Uh,
top card,
it's either that or it's the Red Blast, right?
right?
That they flipped to Delver.
So if I'd wasted them, I could have dazed the Murktide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I fucked up.
Yeah, you could have dazed the Murktide and then snap bolted the Delver, and then we're kind of in this game.
Right. I'm just thinking because like wait, do I somehow know that the blast is somewhere else? I'm confused. What happened to the blast?
Uh, I don't know.
I think I confused myself. Where did it go?
I thought they flipped it to the Delver.
So his
I
hand
guess it
has to
has to
be
be.
it has to be Sanctuary. But I do have days if they have blast, so it's not the end of the world. I'm just confused about like what happened, you know?
Yeah.
So now I'm actually like kind of stable. Like,
That's kind of huge.
I mean, I'm at 3, which is kind of an issue, but all right. So, I mean, we technically
Got
have
rewarded, I guess, for the iteration. I would just play the Murktide to block. I guess like that doesn't work if they just like untap and then cast the blast. So
right.
um yeah, so that doesn't work.
This is kind of a nutso game. Like, look at what turn it is.
Yeah. Oh, you can take them off red now.
Yeah. Oh, they blasted the first of 3 iterations, so I guess their blast had been accounted for, so that's why I didn't worry about it. I thought that I saw a Reb at some point. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I'm pretty sure they flipped their Delver to a Reb,
Yeah.
but this is obviously like a pretty good position for us. It's possible you just play the Delver here to play around days, but maybe that just doesn't matter at this point. I guess it doesn't matter because like they're picking up
No,
their
like
tap land and it's like whatever.
now the days doesn't like really matter to me, you know?
Yeah, I guess you can. Yeah, yeah.
I feel
That's a brutal draw.
I feel like I'm okay. Wait, so they did have a Reb. They just
Yeah.
didn't want to play into the days at that earlier juncture, yeah. I
So
know
now
my
that we
top
know we have a
card. Yeah, so I
hold on
just
top.
shuffle.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to kill them before they draw a card, a lightning
Yeah.
bolt. But I'm pretty sure like I don't have a lot of time for this, so
Yeah. Just gotta kill as fast as possible. So.
you're ready for the bolt. You're a monster, Lackey. So they chose to shuffle off Ponder, so that's a good sign, right?
Yeah. Don't flip our Delvers, but like, I don't know if that matters.
Not
Um,
particularly. I mean, like,
it gives an extra draw step, I guess.
so I can stack it. So
Yeah.
if I flip, I actually auto win. So the interesting question is, am I supposed to keep this regent? I think I am actually. I'm checking the lands. They have 0. Wait, 1, 2. No, they have a... Okay. I don't think that land has anything left to fetch as well. Also, I'm really low on time, and I realize this, so I just start speeding things up, because hypothetically, if there's a game 3, it's like kind of weird, you know?
Yeah.
He asked me if I still he's been tracking my hand. He asked me if I still have the days, and I said, "Who can say? Who can say?" There might be
That's
a...
crazy to
God,
like.
no! The vote!
Oh, that's brutal.
If I flipped the Delvers on that turn, I win.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. And then, like,
And now we have to go to the game 3 where nobody has any time to make any decisions.
yeah, so you just kind of just like click buttons and not time
Yeah.
out. It's kind of funny. I think that type of game is actually should be a lot more common if people play optimally, like this weird dance around Days Sanctuary, and then that just like forces the game to drag out. So I just remembered the Steam vents costing me 2 life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we would have gotten another turn, and then who's to say what would have happened?
Yeah.
So,
So the match, we're down to the wire now. All right, let's see. Speed up, speed up, speed up.
yeah, you probably just take the full minute to sideboard and
Oh, I
relax a
don't
little
change.
bit.
I don't change anything, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
was. So this is a pretty good hand on the play, though. I mean, the Sanctuary is in the wrong place again, but
That's fine. We can fix that eventually.
I mean,
Brainstorm
like,
is like great here, just fixes everything on
yeah,
the spot.
I think that Daze is really good, actually. So, and yeah, I think I just slam a threat, and if they Daze, I actually probably Daze to protect it. You know.
Yeah, yeah. You play the like. You're not on the sanctuary plan at this point. It's like, how quickly can I kill you, and can you stop me
Yeah.
from killing you quickly? Like I think you're pointing these days is at anything you can at this point.
Yeah. It depends on what they are. Like, if it's like another cantrip here, I probably don't. But if it's any removal spell or any blocker, I probably do. So like, yeah, this is like fairly free to do, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's kind of debatable if you want this bolt, I think, but I decided to keep it because I feel like I can rack up a bunch of damage. Plus, it also flips my Delver. So
Yeah, I think the tiebreaker there that flipping your Delver is like really important. Like obviously we're only on 2 card types, but I think that like it's not that hard to hit the other ones because like we have
right.
expressive in hand and like one of our creatures is like not unlikely to hit the bin at some point.
Also, now I can just burn a bolt on DRC, and
Yeah,
I'm not sure
I think I agree
about
with that.
I'm not sure about it, but I also just I look at my clock. I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna like do things instinctually instead of think about it for a while.
Yeah, that's fine. Uh, I wonder if you just like jam the expressive iteration here
I don't think so. Like,
to turn on the Darcy. I guess like at this point you just decide you're playing a longer game and you just like wait another turn.
if they were at like 10 instead, I might have done that, but I think that's just like kind of crazy to do now.
Yeah,
I mean, now I do it because like if they borrow it, who cares?
yeah,
I basically just play around Days almost at all points because I think basically the way he and I play this mirror, none of us side out any Dazes, so it's just like so much more likely that's in person's hand just rotting, you know?
yeah. Big Murktide here.
Ooh.
The land is actually pretty good here, right? Because
Yeah.
that
Yep.
finds us Mystic Sanctuary for oh we haven't found a blast yet. Mm,
I'm literally just looking for a blast because I feel like that's the only card that matters.
yeah, I agree.
Taking too long to think. uh yeah, these I don't know. I feel like we're getting all spectrums of the mirror because game 1 was like kind of weird, but not like turn 20 weird, and then game 2 was literally like, well, we're almost all exhausted. We're like almost all of the lands had been killed from our decks, essentially, right? which is kind of funny.
Yeah, and this is the game where nobody draws any wastelands
Yeah,
and
so
hits every land drop.
we're kind of just getting.
No, you still can't side up days
No,
because when you
because
force people to play into it, it's still great, and then you also get to do the sanctuary loop thing. And
I
like if just
think
days is in your deck, it just doesn't work.
Exactly. Siding out Days doesn't do anything because like Days plus Sanctuary is so broken. Anyways, I do play this into the onboard Murktide, but I figured that like if I don't find the blast anyways, I'm probably still losing anyways.
Yeah.
Days' Mystical Tutor is a good way of putting it. Actually, that's like probably the best reason. I'm not sure about binning that iteration. That might have been a mistake, but I was playing so fast by this point that I kind of just like.
Yeah, and you feel like you're under the gun and all that.
He actually sided and end the festivities, but like the way I play, I kind of think it doesn't like do much for me, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. Chain Lightning is an interesting card to decide to keep there, right?
Thought maybe like they tap out and I remove the Delver and then like I can attack. Well, they have to tap out of double red, but I think the way this game is going, it's actually pretty likely they'll do that, in my opinion.
Yeah, they just cantrip chain into like playing a threat or something.
Yeah. I don't really go into the red time zone very often, but these games just last forever, so like I chose to block. That's kind of interesting. I kind of
just
just
try to bait the extra threat. That makes sense in that situation then. So like it just like gives more value to the card in your hand.
Mm-hmm. He picked up his sanctuary. I'm just like, this is the beginning of the end.
Yeah, and there's another days to keep the loop going.
I think this mirror between two like reasonable players is actually kind of toxic. Like, just look at this shit. It's so like.
Yeah. He already has EI on top. I don't think that there's a reason to stack another card there.
Oh, he doesn't have to stack it yet, right?
That's fair. Yeah.
So my plan is to just trade off and then try to blast their iteration and then fetch for my iteration and try to get ahead that way. But it's like it's not the most reliable plan, you know.
Yeah.
Also, look at the clocks. Like we're both doing things so fast.
Yeah, it's just yeah. Yeah, it's definitely like there's so much deterministic inconsistency that like it's more about your decision making than like what happens. I mean, obviously like there's certain like game states you can get into that are similar or different depending on what happens, but like I think if we have more time on the clock here, we're actually kind of ahead. Like I'd be pretty happy with this board state. But things can change pretty quickly, obviously.
Yeah, I need to have not so many stops as well, probably, but usually it's not an issue for me. Like, also I don't know why I bobbled with with the iteration on the stack because it's like pretty obvious what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm trading here every time, but like now I know they have Murktide and Regent, and now I'm out. Do I take the days over the bubble if I'm not in the red? Probably. I just looked at it and I'm like, that's probably a mistake. But like at the time, I was just clicking buttons because like, look at the time pressure. And I don't blame him. Like, this is just a function of how the game two played out. I'm just forced into a position where I've used too much of my clock to think about this in great detail.
Yeah. So the Murktides just stare at each other until something changes.
Yeah, it's possible I could have gotten him to trade, but I think that actually leaves me in a losing position. If I do that.
Yeah, like you could have just like tried to spec attack, but that probably just leads to chump block with Brazen Borrower.
Well, no, I would bolt first, then attack, and then see. but I
Yeah.
think it's kind of hard to justify that.
Yeah, now all the wastelands are showing up, which I think that these wastelands are much less impactful now, but
All right. Well,
that's brutal.
so I think I could have played differently, but at that point, look at how much time I ended up with. I didn't. I actually
Yeah.
I was just taking reasonable game actions by that point. So, you know. Anyways,
Yeah. And like you flooded out a little bit, just like drew all the fetches and didn't have time to do anything else. And
but I could have taken the days instead of the Bauble, and that might have actually been better. Like I
yeah,
forgot. I was just like clicking buttons too fast probably by that point, but I was worried. Like I think if the game drags out, I might actually time out like just by like 2 minutes, which is kind of sad. But
yeah, yeah, it's definitely one of those matchups where time is important. I think when you're playing the Delver mirror against one of the better players, you almost have to keep pace with them because like it's going to drag out. Everything just gets answered
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah. It's not as bad as Lurus Delver. Like literally, Lurus Delver led to a lot of decking slash timeouts because no one actually died because like it
Yeah,
was
that
just
makes
impossible
sense.
to run out of cards. But here,
Yeah,
like you can hypothetically run out. I ran out because I didn't. I took Bauble over Days. I actually should have taken Days. I think in retrospect, then like I can keep resetting for a little bit more. But
yeah. I think that like you just like defaulted to instinctually like, oh,
yeah,
Days is not a card late game,
yeah,
and Bauble is a card late game,
yeah.
and like that heuristic is just wrong when the Sanctuary nonsense is
Mhm.
active.
Anyways, that's 9 matches. Think yeah, I think that's all I have to go over. Like, I don't know, is there stuff you want to talk about real quick before we call it?
I think I'm good. I think we've covered a lot of things. I
Yeah.
think
Okay.
uh, Delver is dominant,
Yeah. Yeah.
too dominant, but
I mean, I don't know. Like it depends on what they want to do. Please talk about the meta. I mean, there's a lot of blue red Delver. It's clearly the best deck. I don't know if I mean, I don't really like judging if it's too good or not. I let unbiased people uh decide that, and that's my stance on it. That's always been my stance on it. So because
yeah, I
I
think
think
that
just the problem is with people posting that shit is you can't really take a lot of people seriously because they have like a staked interest in the format, including myself. Like if I say some XYZ should be banned, people would be like, "Oh, he's just doing this because so like his other pet thing gets better." So that's why like it's really 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 hard to just like separate
yeah,
that from like I think most people are just not unbiased when it comes to, straight down to it. Like that's literally just the truth.
yeah. I mean, Stormplayer wants to ban Days meme or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's like impossible to separate the two. Even if you are
Yeah,
like, if you truly believe that's better for format health, people just won't view it that way. So, anyways, that's my
yeah.
opinion. If you put a gun to my head, um, probably the card I would choose Axe's iteration. But I don't know. Maybe they'll just print some other stupid card that supplants it instead. So that's my rant. Anyways, don't make me do this again, JJ. I really don't like talking about this stuff. All right. All right. Let's see. Did we get any other subs? Do I owe anyone a chest? Oh, I owe Callum Smith a chest. So let's see what we got. Ooh, ugly
Sticker
sick.
Foundry.
Yeah, I don't think this one's worth anything. What the fuck is
No,
this?
that was the face card of one of the intro decks for M13.
This card has to be worth like 0.0001.
Yes.
Anyways, again, thanks for everyone being here. I think I'm about to call it. If you want to check out Viverus's stuff, it's on theepicstorm.com. He's at Viverus underscore on Twitter.
Yeah, Viverse underscore on Twitter.
Um, if you want to support this stream, you know how. Hit that follow button. That's free to do. Check for those Twitch Prime subs. Check out the Patreon. Check out the coaching and the Discord. So, anyways, who should we raid before we call it? Hello?
I don't know.
There's
What is
Caleb.
Caleb doing?
I
That
don't
looks
know.
legacy.
It looks like Karn.